VHS Files contains spoilers, adult content, and harsh language. Listener discretion is advised.
It's showtime. It's showtime.
So what do you want to do tonight?
What about pizza and movie night?
I want to rent a movie.
Let's get this pizza movie night started.
I want to go to a good video store so I can get a good movie.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the VHS Files Podcast. I'm your host, Josh.
I'm Jenny Lou.
This is Jason.
I'm Eric.
And tonight is episode 9. We're going back to a little year called 1985. And tonight we have another special guest with us. So everyone, please give a warm welcome to Mr. Mike Farrington.
Yay, Mikey! Woo!
Yes. All right. Everyone calm down.
I
Please.
cannot
It's
live
just
up to
Mikey,
that.
people. It's just Mikey.
It's just me.
So Mike is a very good friend of ours. He just met Eric for the first time, but other than Eric, he's known Jason, Jenny, and I for quite some time. We've all just kind of gotten to know each other over the past, 12, 13 years?
I think it's more.
More than that.
I think
More than that.
maybe be in the almost 20 range now.
Oh, I keep forgetting that we're old.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, Mikey. I think I've known you the longest, and it's been almost 20 years.
Yeah, well, that's been more than that. I met you in
98, 99,
90, no, it was 98.
99.
99,
98.
right.
Circuit City open. Me and Mikey worked for
1999.
Circuit City.
so
So 21 years, me and Mikey.
Yeah.
So damn, that was what 98. So I would have been
In high school.
18. Wow.
I was in diapers. No.
Well, it's nice to know that
You're
I'm
still
not.
in diapers.
That I'm still not the oldest person.
Nope.
No, I was in high school.
So we
I
had
think
Mike.
I'm older than Mikey.
We had Mikey on tonight to talk about our movie of the week. And like I said, this movie was from 1985. So we'll go ahead and throw it over to Eric. Eric, take us back in time.
We're sending you back in time.
Whoa, this is heavy.
Well, Josh, the first... Sorry. The first .com domain was registered in 1985. Internet.com. Just
Oh
kidding.
my God.
It was
Wow.
Symbolics.com, registered by the Symbolics Corporation. I don't know what that is. I didn't look. Acting chameleon Sylvester Stallone fooled everyone by playing both John Rambo in Rambo 2 and Rocky Balboa in Rocky 4. And Aretha Franklin's voice was legally declared one of Michigan's natural resources.
Wow.
The Nintendo Entertainment System was released in the United States. And that pretty much sums up the year. That's basically everything.
How old was everybody here? I would have been 5. Jenny 4.
Or, yeah.
I was
Yeah,
3.
I turned 6 in 85. So, yeah.
I was 8.
So Jason is the oldest still.
Yeah.
Jason was in his late.
I'm
30s.
always the oldest. At least I have the privilege of being born the year Star Wars came out, so I use that.
Yeah, but you didn't go see
I'm happy
it.
about that one. I don't care about still born. I was born with the Force.
He was conceived during a filming.
Sounds about right.
Let's get to our movie of the week.
The movie of the week.
Tonight, 1985's Back to the Future. That's what we're talking tonight. And one of the reasons we had Mike on tonight, other than the fact that we love him dearly, is he is the guy in our group that actually owns a DeLorean.
I do.
Amazing.
So
Amazing.
the one thing I wanted to ask while you were here is, do you love this movie or do you hate it now that you have a DeLorean?
I love it. I've always loved it. I will always continue to love it. It is, it's a bit of a point of contention with some DeLorean owners, I'll say.
Right.
There's definitely a set of people that are all about just the car and not the movie.
Mm-hmm.
They like the car for the movie. There's a mix, and most people that I've found in the ownership community is pretty well, we're all kind of in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some people that just despise any Back to the Future reference or anything, so
So like, but loving the
Yeah,
movie.
he goes to conventions.
Right. I mean, we've talked about some of the DeLorean conventions you've gone to and whatnot, but as a lover of the movie, like now, does it kind of irk you when someone brings up Back to the Future when you're with the DeLorean or anything, or is it just?
No, it doesn't irk me at all. I mean, honestly, what the movie did for the car is absolutely, immeasurable.
Right.
So it was a car that had a, tumultuous upbringing, if you will, and the whole production saga and all that we won't get into with in the movie podcast, but
that's a different kind of geek
that's a whole well
even the owner had his own problems with the government,
but no, it doesn't irk me at all. It's I will say when you take the car out and you go to car shows and things like that, I mean you do hear the same jokes and the same questions over and over again, but honestly it's I love it.
All right, so Back to the Future was released on July 3rd, 1985, directed by Robert Zemeckis, and he was coming off of Used Cars and Romancing the Stone. A budget of $19 million, ended up doing $388 million.
88.
88, yep.
88.
Not just a
It's a big number in this movie.
Yep. So, and it was released amongst the likes of The Goonies, which we talked about in our first episode. Perfect, starring John Travolta and Jamie Lee Curtis. The Stuff, one of Jason's favorite kid horror movies. St. Elmo's Fire, Pale Rider, and Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. But if we want to go around and talk about our first experiences or memories with Back to the Future, anybody in particular want to start?
I'll go if nobody else wants to. I don't mind. This movie, the first experience I had with it was at the theater in 1985. Went with my parents.
So you did go to the theater.
I went and saw it at the theater. I remember pretty vividly seeing this movie at the movie theater, at the Cineplex Theater in Pensacola. It was one of those things that hard to describe, but those moments that you have that you can kind of look back and see this is an index mark in my life. Yeah. And really, I think this movie was one of those things for me. Yeah. Always been into cars since I was tiny. It was just kind of brought up that way. My parents were into cars. But for this movie, my parents took me to a DeLorean dealership when I was a kid. Wow. We had one in Pensacola, and I was very young. Yeah. I think this would have been 82. So I vaguely remember it. It was more of a seed planting thing, I think. But going to see that movie and seeing that car roll out of out of Doc's truck, you could put a pin in that moment in my life and go that's where my timeline skewed into a tangent. To coin a phrase from the second movie. But it got me really into these cars. Being this age, I mean, a lot of the people that are into the cars that are that are our age. Yeah. That was really the first kind of experience that we had with them. So for me, love the movie, still do, but it kind of bringing that car into my life and kind of into my consciousness.
It was the catalyst for bringing that to you.
That was it. So it's a really important movie, for me, just because from that moment on, I just became infatuated with DeLoreans, and always kind of said one day I'm gonna have one. And, it was literally the first bucket list item in my life that I can remember having, and managed to actually do it, which, was kind of cool. So,
hey kids, it's like they say in the movie, if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything.
Because knowing Mikey as long as I have, I mean, I know his love for DeLoreans. I mean, I remember going around the Walmarts looking for die-cast Hot Wheel DeLoreans, or him buying the larger scale DeLoreans, the gold-plated DeLoreans. I remember doing that with you, and I remember meeting you and going over to your apartment. It's DeLoreans everywhere. Yeah, and he's like, one day I will own one.
Yeah, that was years
I remember
before it
when
ever
he got
happened.
Yeah, and I was so excited for him when he finally got that car, because I knew he loved that movie and he loved the car so much. It was great. Well, Jason, and he let me drive it, so thanks, Mikey.
You're welcome.
Well, Jason, how about you? Do you have any? What are your first memories of Back to the Future?
For me, I didn't see it in the theater. Again, there's very few movies I saw at that early of an age in the theater. It was a rental. It was definitely one of the ones of seeing it on TV, repeated commercials and everything from, I think they had Burger King commercials for it. And I mean, Back to the Future was everywhere in 1985. So it probably, back rental, it might have been a few months, almost a year later, I finally got to see it. By the time it come out on VHS, because it took a while.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, watching it over and over and over, and of course, loving Michael J. Fox, because I also remember watching Teen Wolf also. So those two movies were really close together. But yeah, Back to the Future was, like Mikey said, it's one of those movies you remember as part of your childhood, right up there with Ghostbusters and everything else. They really made that impact on your life as a child right then and there. And you either, like everywhere you went, you wanted to, ride a skateboard, because I could tell you that's one of the things that got me into riding skateboards and even interested in playing guitar was this movie.
Yeah.
Because just watching Marty do all that stuff. So yeah, that's probably my earliest memories of it. Just video store and watching it over and over again.
How about you, Eric?
Definitely a big movie from my childhood. I mean, I was 3 when it came out, so I didn't see it until I was a little older. But yeah, I mean, Back to the Future, Indiana Jones, those were like the two biggies for me. And yeah, Marty was the coolest dude. And, Indiana Jones is so, you can't really relate to Indiana Jones as a character.
He's so macho.
So over the top and just larger than life kind of thing. But Marty felt like a real kid, like a normal kid. And yeah, you just wanted to be, I watched that so many times growing up. I don't know how many times I watched that movie, but yeah, definitely a classic.
Jenny, how about you?
I think this was definitely a rental for us, but I do remember watching it as a child. And like I said in the Teen Wolf episode, we would watch Family Ties.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew Michael J. Fox from there. And so I know we watched this multiple times when I was a kid. It's definitely one of the ones that stands out from my childhood.
Mm-hmm. And me, I'm in the same boat as Jason and Eric and whatnot. Again, this isn't something I would have saw in the theaters. Definitely something that probably would have been more of a cable or maybe even a possible rental, something of that nature. But for a lot of the reasons that Jason brought up, and that's the thing about this movie, is it's kind of a lot of people's catalyst into certain things in their life, whether it's cars, music, being a scientist. I don't know. I mean, like, all these things are introduced in this movie that presented in such a cool way that it's hard for it not to stick with someone who's, developing and seeing all the stuff that they're doing. It's just so cool the way they present it. So that's really what stuck with it for me. Again, seeing him play guitar and all of that. And then the aspect of time travel really was just something that kind of engrossed me when I was that age.
Definitely.
So it was fun to see all of that work and just the way they have it to where everything just becomes some sort of this implant in your head as a child, because, and we look at what we're doing. We're talking about it again, 35 years later now.
Exactly.
I mean, it's just one of those kind of movies. So let's play the trailer.
Steven Spielberg presents Back to the Future, a Robert Zemeckis film. Marty leads an ordinary life.
No McFly ever amounted to anything in the history of Hill Valley. Yeah, well, history is going to change.
And 1985 is not his year. But Dr. Brown is about to change all that.
Are you telling me that you built a time machine out of a DeLorean?
He's sending Marty 30 years back in time.
It works! It's a flying saucer from outer space!
Now, he's trapped in the past.
It's got to be a dream.
About to meet
Chocolate.
his future father.
He's a peeping Tom.
Wow!
And he's making an impression
Dad's a dirty
on his
man.
mother.
He's an absolute dream. And he can sleep in my room.
Anything you do could have serious repercussions on future events.
Now, he's got to make his mother and father fall in love.
For crying out loud, I haven't even been born yet.
They're really
And
outlining
only
the entire
Dr. Brown
I know, right?
Getting it all.
can help him get back to the future.
Are you telling me that this sucker is nuclear?
Yeah, watch this trailer. We don't want to give away too much of the plot.
Yeah.
Christopher Lloyd.
People say that trailers give away too much now.
Right.
That's giving away quite a bit.
Back to the
It's
future.
like the
This trailer's 25 minutes long.
go watch the movie. We figured it all out right now.
Yeah.
We've crystallized it for you.
So we'll just get right into the meat of the movie at this point. Opening scene tells you so much in the first 2 minutes of this movie, just from the simple pan across the room.
Yes.
It never really dawned on me, and I didn't notice it until this watch, just how much the concept of time is thrown right in your face constantly.
Oh yeah, I mean the first sound you hear is the ticking clock.
And the way they set you up and it moves, like even with the clocks panning across the room, you can see the one where it's got the guy hanging off of the one arm of the clock, and it's just foreshadowing where we're going with this. And you know, when you're a kid, you're just watching this go by, and maybe you're catching the story that it's telling, maybe you're not. It probably comes from all of us watching this movie so many times, and really, I won't even lie. I'll jump ahead a little bit. I found something today that I think I never noticed before. There's just so much buried in this movie that they set up perfectly, and they start to knock them down as you go. And this beginning is an awesome way to start it off. Now,
and it immediately establishes that Doc's inventions don't work very well.
Right.
No. I mean,
like he's burning his toast.
Yeah, his workshop should have burnt down by now.
Right.
Well, and one thing I noticed later in life about that whole scrolling is the article of the newspaper. I never cared about that when I was a kid. You're just looking at all the clocks, but it has the article of him burnt
about
his
house,
mansion burned down
Yeah.
and everything. It's on the wall. I remembered it today, but I mean, it was years into watching this movie that I finally realized, wait, and you hear about all the failed inventions. He actually burns his mansion down. So I was like, okay. And how many of y'all grandmas didn't own half of those clocks in that scan?
I don't know. That's one thing that got me thinking in the beginning of this is all those clocks. And I was like, nowadays clocks are just, we've got them in our pockets. And it's so funny. I saw a picture on Facebook recently, and it was of a guy standing in front of a bunch of gear from the 80s. And it said, all of this is now in your pocket.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it was
amazing.
And there was a table full of stuff, like a big mountain of equipment. And yeah, it's just all in our pocket now. I don't even think we have a freestanding clock anywhere in the house now, do we?
No.
Yeah. So.
Well, the cat one, with the eyes going back
Yeah.
and forth.
Yeah.
Felix.
When I inherited the house that I'm in right now, there was one of those hanging in the kitchen.
Really?
And it still works.
Yeah, I was going to say, is it still hanging in the kitchen?
Yeah, it's not there anymore because I left it there and then it finally died. I mean, I kept putting stuff and it just finally, it's weird. It died after I moved in here, but I was like,
classic.
when watching this movie recently for this episode, I was like, holy crap, I had that clock hanging in the kitchen. And the old regulator clock, I think everybody in Texas got one of those somewhere.
Yeah, I think there were some, had friends that, his parents, you'd see those regulator clocks in a lot of houses.
And there was a few, like, I don't think I ever had a grandfather clock, but I knew plenty of people who did.
And we never did.
Yeah.
So one thing I picked up on this scene, though, is Doc is a fucking slob.
Yeah.
Like,
oh, yeah.
Well, he's living in a garage now. It's all he's got left.
And they even
his whole mansion is in a garage.
Yeah, they even do very well at establishing that. Like, there's just a little bed and this sliver over here by the side. And at first, when it started panning across, I was like, man, Doc has a thing for Burger King. It's like, that dude's getting it. But
dude, he lives behind the Burger
Right.
King.
Yeah. And as soon as Marty went out and the Burger King was there, I was like, oh, well, shit, that explains
He just
it.
walks out and gets something to eat. Yeah, one of the things that one of the things in that scene that, you notice is, as it right from the beginning, as it starts to pan over, you see on a couple of occasions, like past due bills.
Yeah.
And it really, it really kind of gives you an idea of kind of the desperation that Doc Brown is, is in to make this thing successful and, jump ahead. But, the whole thing with the plutonium and what he had to do. And, you know, he's just so desperate to get this to work, you know, to have that eureka moment, that breakthrough, which, you know, 30 years in the making. So, you know, just little touches like that, you know, people may not see, you know.
And that was the thing that I even noticed on this was that when Marty comes in and kicks the skateboard, it bumps into the container of plutonium. I don't think I really picked up on that a lot when I was a kid until you start seeing it with the, you know, watching it with adult eyes. Then you start seeing those things. I know a lot of people have this notion of why is Marty hanging out with this old scientist guy? And I kind of want to start my conversation with this here because I also thought that for a long time. It was like, how did they meet each other? Why are they friends? Why do they do all of this? And I kind of think, and as we go on, I'll talk more about my theory, but you know, all of this is happening because of what happens.
Yep.
It's a weird thing to say. So even with this, like you're just introduced to Marty. He knows Doc. He's at his place. He's destroying audio equipment
with reckless abandon.
Yeah.
Well, he clearly doesn't know how to, for a musician.
Yeah.
An aspiring musician, you don't turn everything all the way up.
Yeah.
Oh no, man! It goes to 11 all the way.
That's actually the note that I have right here. If he knew anything about amps, he would have known that was a bad idea.
Right. Yeah. But you get the
Especially
sense that's
6-foot speakers.
it's probably not the first time he's done that though. You know, he seemed pretty
just comes right
familiar.
in and cranks it up.
Yeah.
Crank it up, fuckers.
Because he gets the phone call from Doc, and Doc's telling him, oh, and by the way, if you're using the guitar amplifier, don't turn it up or something like that. It may explode.
Keep that in mind.
So it's like, how many times has Marty done this?
Speakers so big,
and that
they blow women's clothes off. But his response to destroying this is rock and roll.
That's right.
Yeah, rock and roll. That is the teeny tiniest fucking guitar I've ever seen, too.
It is a tiny guitar.
Dude, that's in my notes, man. I'm like, what is that? Like a Sears and Roebuck guitar or something maybe that they had? I don't even know what that is.
For the time, it looks cool. But yeah, I don't think I've ever seen a guitar that small that wasn't like a lap guitar or something like that.
I like that on the phone call, Marty asks about Einstein to make sure he's okay.
Yeah.
You know,
he's definitely
we know
dog
right
conscious.
away that Marty's a good dude because he's checking on the dog. The dog food is overflowing. We got Einstein. Is he all right?
Everything all right?
That's top priority.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's because, you know, Doc does all these experiments and he uses Einstein. He's like, is Einstein okay? I don't see him anywhere.
I have a note about that later.
Dog. So I'm like, what did you do to the dog, Doc?
I was going to have a retort to that and say, well, no, you know, you can get the sense that Doc's, you know, he loves his dog, but then, he puts him in the car.
Yeah,
right.
And then after, you know, with all the clocks and Marty's rock and roll experiment, then we cue the 1980s Huey Lewis theme music that made this whole movie. I'm sorry, Huey Lewis carried this movie. That's what he did. He's the star of this movie. It's the music.
In a sense. But no, you get.
But I love that
play
opening
a big
music
part.
scene. That music
Great
scene
music.
and him skateboarding is, dude,
yeah.
that's a memorable moment.
That was what would have hooked me.
Yep.
When I was it was seeing him get out on the skateboard, grab hold of the back of that truck, and so I was like, "Whoa!"
Yeah.
He can
do that?
basically.
He instantly became the coolest guy in the world.
Yeah.
The Jason segment. I've tried it, and it's painful when you hit the asphalt. It hurts. I mean, trying it with your buddies, like four-wheeler or even their car when you're a kid. Because I had older friends, and hey, let me do the Marty Back to the Future on the bumper of the car. You get going. Yeah, if your trucks on your skateboard aren't nice and tight, it goes, and you hit the asphalt.
I love that in this universe, Marty can basically traverse the entire city using this method of just grabbing onto cars.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's just
they
no big
hold
deal.
you-
That's how he gets from one place to the other. He just grabs a car, swings around, grabs another car. He's just slinging his way through the city.
That's one way to get across the universal backlot all day long.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great way that they go about setting up the town for you and letting you know just how small of a town it is, and you know, why he feels as though he probably needs to leave it, those kind of things. And but yeah, I love the way they set it up like this. I mean, by the end of this movie, you know that town in and out.
Pretty much.
So much so that this time I'm watching it, I'm like, would he have been able to make that drive? Well, yeah, it's not that far away. You know.
And you definitely notice all the product placement, Texaco, Toyota, Burger King. I mean, they're all big signs right on the road.
Yeah.
And you go back and, you know, that was the whole 80s. I mean, they still do it today, but that was the 80s thing back then. You had to have product placement throughout the whole movie, especially Pepsi, especially in this movie.
Lots of Pepsi.
Was definitely lots of Pepsi and Burger King. Lots of it. It's weird. Isn't Burger King a Coke company?
Maybe it may have been different back then.
Yeah.
It may have.
But that's the one thing I want to go ahead and point out is the way they set up everything and start knocking it down. So much so even with like the product placement and whatnot, because they established I guess they're in this era where sugar was bad. So everything is diet and Pepsi free, all of that stuff. And I asked Jenny while we were watching if Pepsi free was a real thing because I don't remember it.
It was.
And she said, yeah, it was. And they just ended up changing it to caffeine free. But
that Tab.
Yeah. And now we don't even have Tab anymore.
It's going away.
It's going away.
Yeah, there's a funny.
They're both disgusting. Both horrible.
Since we're talking product placement, I don't know, you may have come up with this and you know, research and stuff that you guys have done on this movie, but you know, gone to these DeLorean conventions a few times, and you know, they have you know, people that come, guests and stuff, and you know, I've had the fortune to meet people that were in the movie and involved in the movie, and one of the guys that, you know, every time they have the convention that comes is Bob Gale. And you know, he's a hell of a nice guy, you know, real laid back, real down to earth, and it's, you know, it's awesome spending a weekend with these people. And you know, one of the stories that Bob Gale tells all the time that they went through when they were doing this movie, he talks about product placement and just how much of that was, you know, a part of this movie, and that when they had decided on, you know, using the DeLorean as the time travel vehicle, he had a meeting with one of the studio executives that had a meeting with a guy from Ford who said that they were interested in putting a Mustang in the movie, and that Ford offered them something like $75,000. I believe that was the number.
Wow.
If they changed the DeLorean to a Mustang.
Wow.
And Bob Gale's response is, it's legendary at this point, is Doc Brown doesn't drive a fucking Mustang.
Yeah. I originally heard in the early writings too that the time machine was a refrigerator.
It was. Yep.
Before it was a refrigerator before it was a car.
What kind of refrigerator would Mike have right now if it would have been a refrigerator instead of a DeLorean?
Would it have been a stainless steel refrigerator?
I'd have had a 40-year-old refrigerator I could barely keep running just because it was the one in the movie.
Here's where we meet. Marty's late for school.
Yeah.
And
he is now late for
everyone's
school.
always late in this movie, too. Which is,
Again, the concept.
It's all about time.
The concept of time. And we meet Jennifer. Yeah.
Is this our favorite Jennifer?
It is my favorite Jennifer.
Yes.
Absolutely.
No disrespect to Elizabeth Shue, but
I love Elizabeth
Claudia
Shue.
Wells is Jennifer.
Jennifer
This
was better.
movie-
Jennifer was better. Jennifer.
Yeah, Jennifer. And actually, I went to Pensacon years ago. How long ago was that, Jason? 5 years ago now?
Been about 5 years. Yeah, when we went to
Yeah,
Pensacon.
we went to Pensacon, and she was there. She was there. I was actually getting a picture with Jason Mewes, and I saw her booth over in the corner, and I was like, "Oh, I'll go over and say hello." And walked up to her, and she was very nice. I said, "You're the best, Jennifer."
She was at the convention in, I think, 14, and she was really cool. I mean, pretty laid back, and you know, she almost wasn't Jennifer because she got to she did a pilot for a show called Off the Rack, I believe, and they had cast her as Jennifer, and then they said that they weren't picking up the pilot, so she actually was able to do it, and then ABC changed their mind and decided to pick up the pilot, so she couldn't be Jennifer, and then I guess she shot, I think it was something like 6 episodes or something like that, and then the series didn't get picked up, and so she was able to come back. But I believe Melora Hardin was cast in her place to be Jennifer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that would have been a different movie.
Yeah. Marty's late for school, and Mr. Strickland catches him. He and Jennifer gives him their tardy notes. This guy is way out of line.
He's abusive.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, straight up, like, you're not worth anything, McFly. Like,
literally in his face.
Yeah, touching nose to nose.
Oh, dude.
Yeah,
I had assistant principals like that. They'd get up in your face. You know, I had long hair and rode a skateboard up in your face. You're worthless.
I had COVID nerves on that scene, like where they're talking face to face. I'm like, y'all gotta distance now.
Whoa, 6 feet, mofo.
He is uncomfortably close. Yeah. But one thing I did notice is he's so quick to put down Doc Brown, and watching the movie, you don't really get these interactions with he and Doc Brown. I actually had a lot of parallels to this in Teen Wolf, how the principal at school is giving Scott shit. His dad and him don't have a good, relationship. I kind of saw the same thing in this here, but I was like, well, the principal knows nothing, only knows Doc Brown is a rich guy that's in town. As the movie goes on, and as I'm putting things together, the more and more I watch this, I start to see what it could have been that caused that, because after all this happens, Doc is spending his fortune like crazy, and they think he's a crazy person. So that, I guess it could be just from
he's just
30 years of him being the local crazy guy.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
see him in town with the crazy hair and failed inventions and everything, like burns down the mansion. He's crazy. That's what they're.
Yep.
So, but Marty's in a band called the Pinheads. Great name. So, but he's trying out for the dance, so his band can play the dance, and of course, who do we have judging the contest?
Huey Lewis.
Huey Lewis himself. And I didn't know that until I was older.
Yeah.
Now, there's a funny story about Huey Lewis.
We need to talk about Huey Lewis in the news for a second.
I was about to say, Josh kind of missed out on an opportunity.
Josh, this is me in like most situations. Hey, Josh, Huey Lewis in the News is coming to town. Do you want to go see them? Nah,
I don't think so. I would have liked to have seen him back in like 85. We didn't go see Huey Lewis in the News, and I regret it. Marty's band, the Pinheads, is just too darn loud. Too darn loud to play the dance. Now, I noticed the conversation.
As they rock out a Huey Lewis song.
Yeah, with Eddie Van Halen guitar solos over it. That'll come back into play later as well. But I really caught on to the conversation between he and Jennifer this time, where he's talking about, I don't know if I could take that kind of rejection. And then you hear that again later. And it's, again, going back
to... He gets it from his dad, man.
Yeah, like them setting the pins up and knocking them down. Like they implant all this in you from the moment of the movie. And
this is actually the first time I noticed in that scene when they're talking, all the pornography stuff in the marquee and everything.
Orgy, American
style, and all this stuff.
I never noticed that.
I don't remember that at all. Yeah,
and
good.
And there are
Hill Valley has a porn.
Well, there are two theaters in Hill Valley too, and I noticed that this time, because when he crashes at the end, he doesn't crash into the porn theater.
No, crashes into the town theater.
Yeah, and I was and that kind of caught me a couple of times, because I was like, wait, it's not a porn theater anymore. But then when he runs by, you can still see there is the porn theater.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's
it's actually not a theater. He crashes into. It's a church.
In 85, it's a church.
Oh, okay.
In 85, it's a church.
Well, it still has the like movie theater marquee.
Yeah, it
out
still
front.
looks exactly the same. Yep.
So, but he sees the 4x4 that he wants. He wants to go to the lake with Jennifer.
You see some other girls that he wants.
Yeah,
that's
He's
right.
a little shameless with his wandering eye.
A little bit. Yeah. A little bit.
Yeah, because Jennifer's hot. I mean, why do you want to look anywhere else? You got the girl, man.
Yeah.
Keep your eyes glued to her.
And that's the thing that's kind of odd about this movie as well, is he's sort of we don't really get a good establishment of him in 1985. We know he's in a band. We know he's got the girl, but he's almost played as the outcast or the underdog, because he's down on his luck and doesn't get to do the things with his band that he wants to do and everything. But he's not like a reluctant hero in a sense, because he's very like outgoing when it comes to, hey, we need to do this and get this done. Whereas a lot of characters in movies are usually like very reserved. They're probably more like George McFly.
Right.
Like, well, that's the thing, Josh, that I was thinking was he's so unsure of himself with the music stuff.
Right.
But in every other scenario, he's just brimming with confidence. Like, he's smooth, and no matter what's going on, there's a bully, fine, I'll to pick a fight with him as a, as a girl. Fine, I'll go talk to her. Like, it's no big deal. Like, he's so cool in every situation.
Yeah.
It is, it is weird that he's so unsure of himself.
You're so cool, Brewster.
Yeah.
Well, he's got a lot on the line, with all these scenarios that, he has to make this stuff work.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he's
He
laser
dies.
focused. He's got to get home.
Yeah.
And all of these things have to fall into place. So.
Well, even in the sense of being in the band and wanting to play the dance because he wants to get out of the town. He doesn't want to do small time. I caught on to that during this conversation too, as he says, we're never going to be able to play for anybody. And I think that's his biggest struggle is he's confident. He knows what he's doing. He's good at what he does. It's just, he's still hasn't gotten the opportunity to present that. And in his time travel trips here is when he gets that confidence too, and the opportunity
it
to do
just
that.
kind of falls into his lap.
Right.
So.
Yeah. There's clearly no music scene in Hill Valley.
No.
Because his only opportunity is the Battle of the Bands.
Well, you say that, but there are a bunch of other bands there to try out. Like
That's what I was about to say.
So
Dude, there was tons of bands
right
there.
I don't know if they were local or not, but part of the Hill Valley scene, but there were quite a few bands there. So from here we get Marty goes home. Jennifer loves him.
Well, he also learns about the clock
and
tower.
the clock tower.
He gets the flyer.
Another pin they set up for you. Yep. And then when he gets home, we see the exchange between his dad and Biff. Biff is the
car
worst.
has been wrecked.
He's so
the
terrible.
worst. But I love the exchange between he and Crispin Glover in this scene. How he's just so bullying towards him. I spilled beer on my jacket. Who's going to pay for that? When that guy slammed into me. So.
And in front of
Why didn't
Marty,
you tell me your car had? Yeah. Go ahead, Jenny.
he doesn't have a great male role model at home. So you can kind of see how
he lacks that confidence. Yeah.
He lacks confidence, but also you can see how that opens a door for Doc Brown.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Maybe that's it.
Yeah.
He's looking for a better figure.
And there's probably a fit there, that Doc, just seeing the way other people in town think about him, you hear it from Strickland and, Marty's probably somebody that believes in Doc. And so Doc, he just naturally, kind of wants him around because, they get along and everybody else is probably, has probably written him off at this point. So
I think Doc's pretty much another father figure to Marty.
Yeah.
A different level of a father figure to him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Their relationship's the best part of this movie to me. Just their camaraderie and their, looking after each other and caring for each other.
We've actually talked Crispin Glover on the podcast before for Friday the 13th and his performance in that. So I kind of want to revert back to Crispin Glover for a moment. But the thing about Crispin Glover is he's so goofy in his performances.
Such a fucking dork.
And he owns it in everything I've seen him in.
Don't sugarcoat it, Jimmy. Wow.
Where's the lie?
Right.
That's what Biff thought, Jenny.
But I want to play this clip of him because I just love everything about it. Just him laughing.
I got a question.
Overacted as hell.
Woo! Come on, time to change that oil.
Here it goes again.
Hey, Marty.
And he loves peanut brittle.
Right.
But hey, who thinks that they modeled Revenge of the Nerds after George McFly?
I could see that.
I
could
love the
totally.
peanut brittle. What a great!
Oh, dude!
What a great way to show that he's just corny.
Just eating peanut brittle out of a bowl.
Peanut brittle. Yeah.
Well, there's a story with that peanut brittle scene. I don't know if you've watched the deleted scenes, but so after the fight with or the interaction with Biff, about doing his reports and all that, he and Marty have a little exchange. It's just like, look, Dad, you're too nice.
Yeah.
You just need to learn how to say no. And as soon as they finish that conversation, the front door opens and it's a guy and his daughter. and the guy says, "Hey, McFly, you know, my daughter's selling peanut brittle. It's, you know, however many dollars it was a box. I put you down for a case." And, you know,
Okay.
Marty kind of looks at George, and, you know, it's like, okay.
Yeah.
And so now he's got a case of peanut brittle that he's got to get rid of. So
Well, he's got to eat it a box at a time, too.
right, yeah. So that's why he's eating peanut brittle for dinner.
Wow.
But that scene got cut. So
That's awesome.
Well, you know, you talk about Biff harassing him. Could totally get him fired and like a restraining order against him. It's just ridiculous. But then also, Marty sees that and obviously doesn't like it, but he also contributes to it because his only concern when he gets home is that he can't have the car. And he's just bulldozing his father. Like, how could you do this to me? Let somebody else wreck the car.
That's where that.
And I mean, he doesn't even care what that might mean for his father.
That's where that deleted scene probably could have played a little bit bigger of a part in that. Is he's defending his dad, and then, but yeah, I can see where you're coming from because his only concern is the car and going to the lake with Jennifer.
I mean, I know he's a teenager.
That's pretty standard teenage perspective, you know. And I think he, you know, when he meets the young version of his dad and sees kind of how he got there, he has a little more understanding for all that. So I think Marty grows up as, you know, all this unfolds as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
To see that his dad's been going through that for, you know, as long as he has. I mean, basically just been living that same, you know, just that same personal hell of getting bullied. Yeah. You know, it definitely makes an impression.
One thing I
George really should have moved, right? Why did George stay there in town and just get picked on by Biff for that long?
Anyway. I mean, that holds true to the whole aspect of Marty wanting to get out of there. Like his dad probably felt trapped. I can relate to this all too well. You feel trapped in the town that you live in. You can't get out of there. So I could see where it could be that sort of a scenario.
Yeah.
Jason.
And the next time I borrow somebody's car, one of you better tell me that your car has blind spots because that's what causes accidents.
Spill beer,
not the beer drinking. Not the beer drinking. The fact that your car had blind spots and you didn't tell me, Mikey.
Better pay my cleaning bill.
He's got an older brother and a sister. Why do they still live at home?
Because the thing is, this family is losers. And they're a group of losers. They can't rise above.
The McFly name is cursed.
Yeah.
It's like what his dad started in high school. It's just kind of carried right into his family.
But that's the one thing that doesn't
like you said, that's
the one thing that doesn't get better though, is at the end when things have changed, the kids still live at the house.
Maybe
they just love each other.
You're right. It is weird that they're there for breakfast. Maybe they just like to come over for breakfast. Maybe they're they don't live
at the end of the movie. You really don't know.
Yeah.
Well, and you know,
at that point in time, you know they're living there. I mean, and the brother works at Burger King.
Yeah.
But, you know, as it changes, you know, at the end, you know, you kind of get the sense at the beginning that they're all living there because they, you know, they're kind of, it's just tough times, you know, but at the end, you know, obviously they're doing better financially and, you know, they're still there, but maybe it's just, you know, they've got that family unit and they like being with each other. And
again, we've seen this movie so many times. And we're really just nitpicking little things at this point. Yeah, we could totally just tear. And
that's what we're here for.
Yeah, well, Jason and Eric are here to tell us why those nitpick things matter because they tend to defend everything that I bring up most of the time.
We try to explain away as much as possible. I want to find solutions to these problems.
Exactly. We're the solution finders.
Well, can you
find
what
we do? We fix things.
A solution to the fact that his mom is a dirty liar. She portrays herself as a very chaste young lady when she was growing up. Never called a boy, never sat in a car with a boy.
Right.
But we know.
We know, but I think, you know, you really see what she's going through and like kind of, you know, her interior monologue in that scene, you know, after she describes how she, you know, that was so stupid. Grandpa hit him with a car, you know, and she says, you know, your father kissed me for the very first time on that dance floor. And
This is the first time This is the first time I sensed like regret.
Well, you see that. I mean, she says so much by just not saying anything, and that look in her eyes that she's
staring at George.
Yeah, she's clearly not, happy with the way things have turned out. And I think, it could be argued that she's saying those things because she knows, what, she's purposely telling her daughter not to do things and her son not to do things that she did to maybe not end up where she is, and not that, I mean, really
she doesn't want
things
them
are
to make
so
the
bad
same
for the McFlys. I mean, they're all together and all that, but that's kind of how I took that is that, she was just trying to don't make the same mistakes that I did.
I mean, don't all parents do that though, for the most part?
Yeah.
Right.
Oh God. Yeah.
Just,
that's
full on open about all their.
Exactly. Like I think this is a great commentary on how when you're the adult and you're the parent, what you'll do to protect your children. You'll lie. You'll do whatever you need to do to make sure they don't make the same mistakes you did. So, and that's something that I've talked about before and with people I know and whatnot is it kind of drives me nuts about, some parents that completely forget what it was like when they were their kids' age and they just want to be, like you have to remember that you were that age too once and you were doing the same thing that they were doing. Maybe you regret how it turned out and for you or something like that. But I love the commentary it's doing on that.
Yeah.
Well, and just learning that his parents are human beings, which we all kind of learn at some point.
Yeah.
And, you can blame them for everything for a while, but at some point you do realize when you grow up that they're human beings. They're flawed people just like everybody.
Yeah.
And, so.
Yeah, I was going to agree with Josh on that one part. It's like I have friends that I grew up with. We did some not so safe things, everything. Myself, I have no children, but I know them and they have children. And I hear them talk to their teenage children saying, don't do this. I don't want you to, if you do this, you're grounded for a year. I would just kill you myself like that. And I'm like, in the back of my head, we did way worse than everything you're threatening them with. And you turned out just fine. You got a great home, a great family, and a great life.
Yeah.
Just be
Well,
smart
you
in
give
your
them an
decisions,
inch to take
kids.
a mile, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
But it is our big exposition dump on what Marty will take with him when he eventually goes back in time. So now we're getting to where Marty is woken up by Doc by a phone call, and he needs to get to the mall. He fell asleep. And this is really this scene is where everything in this movie begins and ends. Like
Mikey's moment, man.
Yeah. I mean, just the skateboard to the mall. Again, setting up the littlest things for you, like the Twin Pines Mall sign.
I'm about to say, what's the name of the mall?
Yeah. And so he gets there, and then it's the big reveal. You just see Doc Brown's truck, and all of a sudden smoke starts coming out of it's a little theatrical.
Oh yes.
But you see
Mikey's life changes forever at this moment.
But you see this airplane without wings roll out of the back of a truck, and it just looks cool as hell, man.
Yep.
I mean,
the design of it is bonkers. All the additions they make to it, all the switches and the flux capacitor and all that stuff just looks so good.
Yeah.
Now, I read something about this, Mikey. You let me know because I know you've been. I read that after this movie, because the whole time machine DeLorean thing, that DeLorean actually started making body kits so your DeLorean could look like the time machine.
The factory had shut down by that point, so the company itself, was no longer producing anything. By the time that movie came out, but I mean, there are a lot of people that are doing, conversion kits. I mean, not necessarily kits, but you can send your car to them and they'll actually do a conversion for you. Yeah. Nothing that ever came out of the the official DeLorean factory.
Before I had met you, well, no, I had met you, but before you bought your DeLorean, Jenny and I lived in Virginia for a brief period. And there was actually somebody there in the little area we lived in Norfolk, Virginia, that had a DeLorean, and it was modded out. It had the stuff on the back. It had the flux capacitor in it. They would have it parked on the street all the time when we would walk up and down to go to the video store or wherever in that little town we lived in. And we would just, everybody was always looking at it. But yeah, if you could look right in the door and see the flux capacitor in the middle. So that was really cool that he actually had it modded out and on the street, and he would drive it around.
Yeah.
So
that's cool.
But I love Doc's response to telling me you built a time machine out of a DeLorean. I figure if you're going to make a time machine, you got to do it with some style.
Damn right.
Yeah.
And the stainless steel helps, remember?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
There's an actual scientific reason for his choice.
There's something there.
But our introduction to Doc is great. He's just this mad, like, look up a definition of mad scientist and see a picture of Dr. Emmett Brown. You know exactly what you're looking at. I love on his van, too, it says scientific, it says Doc Brown, scientific something or
24-hour scientific services.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. So, and it doesn't really give you a sense of what he does. I mean, how he's making a living. Like, yeah, we find out he's living off of a family fortune, and has blown through it. But one thing I find really interesting about this watch, and kind of looked at Jenny, is like Doc Brown, in a sense, was doing terrorist work in order to build a time machine.
He was
no. He tricked terrorists into giving him.
But they wanted him to build a bomb. Like
he was
they
doing,
did.
He
They're
was doing things
terrorists.
under the
He's not
guise of terrorist work,
Yeah,
just to further his own.
Remember, he built it out of pinball machine parts.
I understand. He still
knew
took
it wasn't going to work.
Josh, just take a step back, okay? The man is a treasure, first of all. Secondly, he thwarted a nuclear terrorist attack, and built a time machine.
He's a
in
hero.
one move.
Yeah,
He's
he
a
is a
damn
hero.
hero.
But he took a job building a bomb.
He took
Yes, to steal the plutonium.
He never
He
ever
didn't make the bomb.
He never intended to
He
build
never
the
was
bomb.
going to make a bomb.
This was just a way to
He
get
was
plutonium.
never going to do that bomb.
I
Yeah,
don't
like
know,
he said, and
guys.
he even told him,
attention.
he's like, I made it out of pinball. I made it out of pinball machine
So
parts.
they
He
want-
knew it would never work.
They want me to build them a bomb. And I mean, in the way he describes it, it's just like, oh yeah, I burnt these guys. I just wanted their plutonium.
They just looked up scientific services in the yellow pages.
Yeah.
How they
And they looked and they're like, well, this
That's
guy
how you did it in the 80s.
We can get this guy 24 hours a day, so we'll call him up, right?
Yeah, we need to overthrow a
right
government
there on
over
the
here.
side of his van.
Got a
Yeah.
scientist 24 hours a day. He can build us a nuclear bomb.
And what's funny though is if on the back of his van, you can't really see, but you can see it now in the if you have the Blu-ray,
Right.
But there's a bumper sticker on there that says "One nuclear bomb can ruin your whole day."
Again, more little background stuff that they threw in there.
Or atomic bomb, and nuclear or atomic, one of the two. But yeah, I mean, it's just the little things.
And I was even looking so close for little hints of stuff, like when Marty comes home from when he's with Jennifer and he sees that the car is wrecked, there's a radio thing playing in the background. I stopped it and rewound it a couple of times because I was trying to figure out if they were talking about Libyans that had stolen plutonium or something, like, which they did in the beginning of the movie. But
Yeah.
I'm still like, turns out the radio thing wasn't anything important. But I'm constantly looking for those little background things that are going to give me more clues.
Little Easter eggs.
Yeah. So Doc explains what he's done. He's doing a test. And he was willing to sacrifice his dog for
Poor
science.
Einstein.
Not just his dog, because they stand in front of the car.
Yeah.
If it go back in
He's
time.
pretty confident.
This is how confident he is. 'Cause
Right.
this is an all or nothing moment for Doc Brown.
Absolutely. And,
And
he goes to run away and he's like, no, watch this.
Yeah.
Like he's
No.
confident in what he's done at this point.
if I fall, you're going down with me.
The math,
He's
the
willing to
math
go.
checks out. It's
Yeah.
gonna be fun.
It's going to happen.
He's
not
willing
only
to
the
let
fact
his
he-
dog go and kill a kid in the process.
Yeah.
And not only the fact did he build a time machine out of DeLorean, he turned it into the biggest RC car ever.
Totally.
With a remote control. I mean, who didn't want that as a kid? I want a whole big car to run around the yard. Yay.
I think that was the
I mean,
thing. Not just the fact that it was a cool looking car, but the fact that he had it hooked up to a remote control.
Yeah.
And at that time, that was probably one of the most high tech things as a kid you
Oh.
probably had. It was like,
God.
you can
I
do
used
this with a real car.
Dude, that's what I wanted every year for Christmas was a new remote control car.
Heck
to press.
yeah.
And then you see in the movie, he's got a full size, and it's a time machine.
And it's a manual transmission,
I
no
do-
less. I just swing that.
Yeah.
We have found a
and,
flaw in
Just
the
a
system.
bumper on top. He's got buttons for the clutch and
Right?
Yeah.
gear switch knob. And
But
everything.
I think the cool thing is when he's standing there and he's freaking, power brake in this thing, and he says, when this baby hits 88 miles an hour, you're going to see some serious shit. Yep. And I was just like, I love that quote out of this whole movie. And you just see Marty like, what? And then the car comes flying at them.
But Michael J.
Again, Mikey will attest. There's no way that car hit 88 miles an hour in that parking lot.
Hell no.
No way.
This parking lot looks like every JCPenney mall parking lot.
It does.
Like it seriously looks like our
one here.
mall parking lot.
I was about to say, it's the one in Panama City. It's the same one here in Beaumont, Texas. It's the same parking lot. JCPenney's all look the same.
But the experiment works, and the car disappears, and when the score kicks in after the car goes away is amazing.
Yes. Alan Silvestri.
One thing I did notice about this movie though is the score is very similar to Predator. Watch this movie and then go back and listen to Predator. And I think Alan Silvestri did Predator's score too.
I think he did Predator 2. Did he do Predator 1?
We'd have to check. Okay. But there are hints of Predator in the score to this movie.
Eric, can you fact check that for us, Mr. Newsman?
No, he can't.
No, I'm not doing it.
It's a great visual. It's a great moment. How excited Doc gets in that time, and even it still sticks with me when they're standing in the tracks of the car and it's on fire and their legs are like, the digital effect of that doesn't look so good, but just the fact that they're still standing there and in these fiery tracks of this car, and they're just blown away by what just happened.
Silvestri did Predator 1 and 2.
Oh,
and The Predator.
Nice.
So there we go.
Yep. So it tracks.
So I kind of want to watch Predator now.
Yeah, just to hear.
Yeah, but there's two key points, like, and I think it's just.
I love that part in The Predator where it goes. Dun, 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 dun.
Now that
That's
you
my
mention
favorite
it,
Predator moment. You know when the Predator comes out and eats somebody's face, rips their spine out.
So this is where we get our exposition dump on how he powers the car. It's electrical, but he needs plutonium to get it up to the 1.21 gigawatts of power he needs. And gigawatts is mispronounced, correct?
It is.
It's gigawatts.
Gigawatts.
Right?
Yeah.
This was before that was a common term.
Yeah, and they actually, Bob Gale talks about it in the commentary on the DVD or Blu-ray about that very thing, that, it was a term that him and Zemeckis weren't really familiar with, and so they had written it, and he said, if I recall, they had written it in the script completely misspelled, like with a J, and that's how it ended up in the movie, and then he learned later that it was mispronounced, but I said, whatever.
It worked out because it feels like it's such everyone knows it from this movie,
right?
It's
exactly.
Gigawatts. It just sounds cool.
It flows.
They like coined a term,
Yeah, they did.
1.21 gigawatts.
I mean, who doesn't say that on a daily?
Christopher Lloyd is fantastic in this movie.
He is amazing in this movie. His eyes when they just bug out, like when he reacts to things.
He's a cartoon.
He'll be in the background and just reacting to things.
I mean,
not even speaking at the moment, like when Marty's talking to his mom in the past,
Yeah, and his eye,
he's just reacting. Oh God, he is so funny, dude.
You just think of Christopher Lloyd and all of his characters, like when he plays the judge in Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yes.
Uncle Fester and Addams Family. He is always animated.
Well, jumping ahead a little bit where he's in the background when Lorraine comes to the house in the past.
Yeah.
When she comes in and she's going to talk to Marty, his whole response and the way he walks away and looks at her was actually ad-libbed by him. Like they gave him direction, but he just kind of went on his own cuff there and did that whole reaction. And his facial expressions are great.
Oh, it's awesome. Yeah.
Just go ahead and do this.
Here's my hot take.
Hot take.
Hot take. Hot take.
Hot take.
I think.
No, we got a hot take already.
I think Christopher Lloyd's hamming it up a little bit. This time around.
Are you saying you wanted him to dial this performance back?
I feel like some of it is very overacted.
No,
this
I
is
love it.
No.
You know what?
Can we have a mutiny here and get rid of the captain?
There's a chasm growing through the middle of this podcast, and Josh, you're on one side of it, and the rest of us are on the other.
The rest of
that's what this is all about, guys. Is talk about our differences. So
right now it is 4 against 1. You're going to lose.
So are you
Christopher
saying
Lloyd is perfect in this movie?
Are you saying just that scene is overacted, or
No,
it's an overarching thing?
There are particular moments in this where I think Christopher Lloyd is going a little overboard.
Oh my
Disagree.
God.
But I think that's him. That's it. That's his. Like he is
Exactly
just,
as much as it
his
should
mind
be.
is fried.
Well,
Yes,
think
it's
of all the
perfect.
performances in this film. They're all over the top. They're like, I mean, look at Crispin
Even
Glover,
Biff.
look at Biff. Like,
Yeah,
everything's dialed up. We're clearly in movie land here. Like, this is not a realistic depiction of people.
I mean, you're dealing with the subject of time travel. Like, is it too ridiculous to think that these people
You're talking
would
about
be this
overacting.
animated? I mean,
I'm
we're
just
not
saying there are
exactly
certain
working
points, like
with
when
reality here.
There are certain points when he reacts to things that are good, and there are certain points where I feel like his response is a little too overdramatic. Like when the car disappears and they realize that they just sent Einstein back in time, and he's
Forward in time.
and he's just going crazy. That's a great response. But there are certain times, like at the end when the bell's going off in the clock tower, and that bell, he looks in and sees the bell going off, and he's
it's got to be so loud
Yeah.
though.
I understand
Yeah.
that, but there's also thunder going off. Like
His
I don't know.
symbiote was falling off too.
Yeah, the symbiote fell off.
Yeah, and his
The
trousers.
symbiote
He was
fell
doing
off.
the-
That's painful.
Yeah.
Well, what else?
See him in the background here.
The other thing I wanted to say about Christopher Lloyd is when I first saw this movie, I had no idea that he was wearing aging makeup
You can really see it now.
for the 1985 portions because he was already old. Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, it was VHS, so you couldn't see
Yeah,
those
things
tiny
were-
little wrinkles.
yeah.
Much more.
I actually have
obscured.
that in. I have that in my notes too for the makeup in there for Lloyd and Strickland. When you
Strickland.
first see
Yeah.
Strickland, look at his neck.
Yeah, their
that
necks.
old neck makeup. You're like, oh, this is horrible. Like, come on, Zemeckis. You had Spielberg involved. You could do a little better aging process. Come on.
Well, again, we've talked about this a lot on the podcast. They at that time never crossed their mind that people would be watching this in 4K UHD resolution,
Exactly.
and seeing seeing the movie flaws in it.
Yeah, and they talk about that, you know, in the commentary about that very thing with the makeup, and that you know Bob Gale was saying, yeah, you recognize this is pretty, it's pretty obvious, and it's pretty bad, because what they had to do in the first movie was like a combination of the latex and then the actor's actual flesh, and they said that by the time they got to the second and the third movie, there had been advancements in that
Right.
discipline that things could look a lot better, and they could do more with latex and full facial things. So
Well,
It would have been better if they would have had
That's not
Stan Winston do it. It would have been perfect.
That's true. They couldn't afford Stan Winston.
They couldn't afford it, Stan Winston. No.
But that's not even the worst stuff effects wise in this.
Oh no!
Well,
No, it's not.
When he pulls in, when he pulls into the driveway, in the DeLorean at the end, there's like a stunt driver with like a wig on or something.
Oh, it's not Christopher
That's
Lloyd.
Yeah, it's not clearly not him. That's a
Well, even later when Biff's driving through the town chasing Marty, you can tell it's not Biff driving that car when they go through the town square and stuff too.
Yeah.
Again, little things they would have never,
Yeah, those are not.
Yeah,
dings
we
at all.
weren't
I don't
ever
mind that
meant
one
to be able to to be able to make that.
But there's even some things they do in this movie that I'm impressed that they pulled off with the effects and the makeup they had.
No.
I mean, the effects of the DeLorean leaving, traveling in time, like all the sparks and the all the energy coming off of it and all that stuff, that all looks great.
Yeah, still looks,
But
so Einstein gets back. I was relieved as a child.
Yeah.
I was worried about the dog for
Yay!
that 60 seconds or however long he's gone. And then and we learned that the Doc is planning on going to the future. His whole plan for all of this is he's about to go to the future.
Right.
Which is something I never really thought about as a kid.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, Doc made a time machine and now this happened. Like, I never really thought, like, his plan all along was go to the future, which he actually does.
Yeah, I mean, he's ready to go right then.
Yeah.
Like
And what's funny is he's talking about going to the future, but that's when he starts giving us the information about going back in time too. And it's like, to go to the future and then get back to the past, I understand you need that, but he he almost seems a little more obsessed with the past stuff than what's going to happen in the future. But I mean, he's already lived through a good majority of some of that stuff, so why not go to the future? I understand his take on that, but
he's a scientist. He wants to see scientific advancement.
Yeah, that's what he was saying. Yeah, he wants to see how civilization had
Can be on my
advanced.
ears.
And then he can see the winners for the next 30 World Series. Which kind of gives you a hint to part 2.
I like legal betting plays a big role in Back to the Future.
Which I think is funny because he talks about that, but yet through the whole movie, after he gets to 1955, is Doc telling Marty not to mess with the timeline and all these things, and you're like, then why would you be interested in who won the next 30 World Series, Doc? Are you trying to make that family fortune back, but that you squandered to make your time machine, or?
Well, he's against it in the second one. I don't think
it's just kind of weird that he.
I think he just mentions it as a joke.
Maybe he loves baseball.
He doesn't say anything about I guess maybe you could draw that conclusion, but that he's not doing it to be able to bet on it. He just wants to know.
Yeah.
Which to me seemed a little odd because, it seemed out of character for Doc.
He's a scientist.
Everything you know about Doc, but everybody has their little, their little things are, maybe out of character for them, and maybe
we know that Doc eventually just throws all that out the window. Well, of course, at a first watch, you don't know that, but we know from watching it for so many years that he throws all that logical thought out the window in the end. But one thing I did notice this watch is when he's explaining to Marty how it works and putting the dates in, and when he hits November 5th, 1955, you see this spark of awe in his brain, or you can see that he kind of sparks up at that. And I almost took it this time as the way they play it in the movie is he realizes that's when he invented time travel, but it's been 30 years and he's done so much in that time to get to where he is. I think he just remembered that, this is why I did all of this, is because I have to.
It just hit him in that moment.
Yeah.
That he's, that he's been doing this thing for this long.
Yeah.
That
what he said. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, are we to assume that he's got a bulletproof vest on through this initial sequence?
I didn't even look. I don't think so.
No, because
I'm just curious because I some of the time travel stuff, obviously that gets really murky when you start doing stuff because Marty changes some things, but he also sets some things in motion as well throughout the film that have already happened.
Well,
or it seems as so, and I just wonder if in this opening scene, because you see Doc get shot down, he never gets a chance to check on him.
Right?
Did he have the vest on the whole time? I don't know. I never thought that until this watch, but
I wouldn't think he would. I mean,
I think the events in this movie unfold because Doc already knows. So
you think he's already got the vest on?
I think he already has the vest on. Here's my thing, and this is something I came up with a few watches back and have kind of been sitting on it, and I'm glad we had to do a podcast now so I can talk about it. And that's kind of why I brought it up at the beginning of this, is it's always been this question of why is Marty hanging around with Doc and why do they have this relationship and whatnot? Because Doc knows that in order for him to be where he's got to be, Marty is a part of that. Like, this whole movie exists because Marty has gone back in time
and written him a letter
and put this in motion for Doc Brown.
Right. But
like, this movie doesn't happen without him going back in time. So essentially, when we're starting this movie, this has already happened. Like, that's kind of how I see it.
But he changes his parents.
His parents are one thing. Doc is another.
I know,
but you can't have one without the other, though.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we have both, I think. Because now, obviously, you could argue the vest thing, but Marty gives Goldie Wilson the idea to. It seems he gives Goldie Wilson
to run for mayor.
Yep.
To run for mayor. Marty seems to invent rock and roll. Not black people. There was something else I wrote down, but yeah, it does seem. I mean, obviously, you're going to have stuff like that in a time travel movie because you just can't make a time travel movie without it.
But what? Yeah,
that's just sort of the way that I have started to see the movie now. Is that the reason this movie is because Marty went back in time, like he sets everything in motion.
But what's interesting is, are you going to look at this movie based on the rules they establish in the second film that Doc establishes?
We're not talking about the second film right now.
I know, but we're looking. When you look at time travel, you have to look at it a certain way, right?
Right.
You have to look at. There's like two schools of thought, right? There's the Terminator school of thought and the Back to the Future school of thought, right? Are the two main. Go, Jason, you got something?
I was gonna say, or you have something that dismisses all of it. The last Avengers movie showed that Back to the Future, Hot Tub Time Machine, all that is all wrong because Tony Stark said it was wrong. And RDJ is never wrong.
The thing that really cooks, the thing that'll really bake your noodle is what was the genesis of all this? Are we seeing it on screen, or
you're not supposed to know?
Right.
It's the circular effects of time travel.
Yeah, I mean, time travel it's literally impossible to debate like what the actual legitimate rules are. But I don't know. I think looking at it through that lens, I mean, you're talking an infinite loop.
Yeah.
That just, I don't know. I mean, I never thought of it that way. Like, we're doing this because, I thought, I always kind of figured it to be linear until he went back and then, things changed, as a result of that. And, because, I mean, you could argue based on that when he goes back to 85, there are two Martys there.
Right.
And then this could happen again, and then there'd be a third, and then there'd be a fourth. So I don't know. I never thought about it that way.
It reminds me of Rick and Morty now.
Yeah,
right,
we need
exactly.
to. Hey, Mikey, can we bring in your wife because she is a rocket scientist and she can explain this for us? Karen, we need your help. Can you call in, please?
I think she would plead the fifth on this.
Josh, given your concept of it, that your theory or whatever, the problem is that the parents and the truck and Biff have changed in the second loop.
Mm-hmm.
So is your idea that there's two loops? Because it wouldn't revert, so it has to. There's a first loop, there's a second loop. Because the first loop,
now we're getting into the Kelvin timeline of Star Trek. I mean, again, these are the debates that we could go on and talk hours about.
This podcast is skewed into a tangent.
And again, it goes back to the Avengers too with the timeline. How it can, if you move this part, it goes this way.
Yeah, well, you can
take part, it goes this way.
You can flush the Avengers down the toilet, and we'll start talking primer. How about that?
Yeah.
Tony Stark
throws everything out.
Well, if you're talking primer, there are multiple of everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
So essentially what Marty did was caused infinite time loops of different scenarios.
Yeah.
Sorry, we have went on a wild tangent tonight.
He started the Marvel universe is what it did. So they started the Marvel. That's why it's all bullshit, is because they started the universe and Marvel's living in that universe, so they don't believe it.
There you go. That's what it is.
That's why Marvel universe has so many different other universes. 616.
Even though Marvel was around before this.
Shut up.
Anywho.
I just wanted to say, you're right, Jason, that Avengers was before this, obviously, in comic form. And Tony Stark makes a fake bomb for terrorists as well.
Just
like
hey, look at this. Oh,
Doc ripped off
the parallels.
Stark on that one, buddy.
Yeah, so the Libyans fine.
Anyway, yeah. So Doc dies, and I was heartbroken.
Oh, who wasn't?
Yeah. That was an intense scene for sure.
Especially since we really just first met him, and you've already lost him at this point.
Yep.
Even though, I mean, at the time you don't know where the movie's going, you don't know if you're going to see him again.
No, but you already love him.
Yeah,
and then boom, that's it.
In such a short period of time, you love him, in like he's on screen for just a few minutes.
Yeah, 3 or 4 minutes, really quick.
It's great when the Libyans find him too, and they start firing on him. This is where I think Christopher Lloyd overacts, and it's great, is when they start firing on him, and he goes, "I'll draw their fire!" And he runs to the back of the truck. It's so good. And then,
he's laying it on the line, man. He's trying to save.
Right.
He's saving the kid.
But he's drawing their fire because he knows that if he draws their fire, Marty's going to go back and do what he needs to do. There's the argument there. Like, is that why Doc does what he does?
There.
Josh, with that theory, though, if that were the case, I think Marty should have caused the head on the toilet problem, like by knocking on the door or something, and he slips and hits his head and invents the flux capacitor or whatever.
But that happened
making
before.
it more like, because he already had the idea for time travel before Marty goes there.
Yeah, and that's way before. I mean, Loop 1. By that.
But if Marty hadn't told him that it was real, would he have?
He's a
ever
failed inventor.
Acted on it and believed his.
He's a
idea?
failed inventor, and nothing he's done has worked. Marty is confirmation to him that he builds a time machine. So it puts him. It puts him on a path to be able to risk his entire family fortune and what he has to sink into building this time machine because he knows he has to do it, and that he does eventually do it.
He could also have reverse engineered some of that stuff in
Right.
the time machine.
I mean, he even sees that with the video camera when, like, he's seeing technology that he's never seen before.
Sure.
So,
I mean, given 35 years to pick a movie apart, we can come up with all kinds of, theories.
So Doc draws the fire. Marty sees him get shot down, and then Marty tries to take off, and the Libyans have a gun jam, so he luckily gets to jump into the DeLorean, and Marty officially becomes the first time traveler.
Yes, he does.
That would be the one thing I think Doc would have a bigger problem with, is that he wasn't officially the first time traveler. But then again, neither was, technically Einstein was. But the first human time traveler was Marty McFly.
Yep.
And I think genuinely he forgot that it was a time machine when he got in there to escape.
No, it's just a car. Yeah.
He wasn't trying to go back in time. I mean, he did it by accident.
At this point, he's in survival mode. He's just like, get me out of here as fast as I can.
He's just trying to get away.
Yeah, he downshifted and
turned
the time circuits on when he downshifted accidentally.
Yeah, and that was the last date that Doc had programmed in there, so that's why he went.
Yeah.
But so Doc mentions that the mall area used to be nothing but farmland as the eye could see, and that pine trees, and old man Peabody had this obsession with breeding pine trees. So again, setting up pins and knocking them down, he time travels, and where he's at currently in this point in time is where it was in 1955. This barn scene is one of the best things about this movie, and the comic book, him in the hazmat suit, all of that stuff. It plays so well, and the responses to everything is so much as when he comes out of the door and they shoot at him with the shotgun, how he trips over the door and falls over. It looks so natural.
Yeah.
And but I love the kid's response to it. He's already mutated into human form. You mutating bastard! Son of a bitch!
And what's cool is it fits the time because this is right past the atomic age.
Oh, everybody's afraid of,
and everybody's scared of aliens, UFOs, Area 51, and then all of a sudden this happens. So it's like perfectly fits right into the whole timeline.
Definitely, and you have Michael J. Fox again with the great physical comedy.
Yeah,
we talked about it a little bit in Teen Wolf, but he really is so animated and so good at physical, goofy comedy, and just he's so fun.
I really saw the Rick and Morty parallels in this time, and just even so much as Michael J. Fox's voice and how he's kind of, oh my god, Doc, like.
Well, what I observed is that Rick is pretty much Doc if he gave in to every impulse, like every bad thing, like
every bad idea.
They're the antithesis of each other. They're like, Doc is
right, because Doc is very careful about not upsetting.
Yeah, and
Rick would have totally built a bomb for the Libyans.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
if it would have got him where he needed to be.
How about it?
Also, Doc is not a drinker.
True.
We know that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we find that out later. He cannot hold his liquor.
How many is he? Just the one?
How much did he drink? Just the one. And it took him all night to drink it. But that's a later episode.
Yes, I'm skipping.
So I do find it convenient that the DeLorean has the starter's not messed up to where he can get out of the barn, but then the starter just dies after that.
The DeLorean breaks down constantly. throughout these films.
Yeah,
that's where
pretty
we
much every
establish
time
it,
they
though.
time travel.
And Mikey, is that a normal problem of the DeLorean breaking down? Because I believe you have called me before trying to help you get somewhere when your DeLorean broke down.
It happens.
Any car that old is going to break down.
Exactly. Well, the thing is, it wasn't that old in 1985.
No, I mean yours. But yeah,
Maybe
it seems like every time he time travels, though, it breaks down.
Yeah,
I think it was when he ran over the tree. When he ran over Peabody's tree, the two pines he had, I think it might have messed it up.
You could argue, hitting a tree that'll mess up a car.
Yeah.
Did he get shot?
Kicked it up underneath the back because we know that the engines of these are in the rear.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
All right, I got a question. Let's figure out a plot hole here. All right.
There's no plot holes in this movie.
Yeah. All right. He sends Einstein to and back because he says plutonium gets you one trip.
Yeah.
No, he sent Einstein to the future 1 minute.
Yeah, one minute into the future.
But because he said one trip, that's why I'm like, is it a trip round trip or one way?
It's one trip through. Yeah. And that's all.
That's what I was. I kept wanting to know that even over this time and over the years. I'm
that
like,
checks out.
It's like because Einstein went and came back, but I know it was into the future.
But
so
that was his trip.
Yeah.
He just
that's
went.
what I was trying to
he didn't
figure
come
out.
back. He just went.
Okay. Thanks for you guys fixing that for me.
Technically,
my brain hurts.
That's where there is a little bit of a problem with time travel in general. In this is Marty is 5 days older now. At the end of this movie, Marty's 5 days older.
Sure.
So potentially, even if he comes back to 1985, he's still old.
He's older. Yeah. Yep.
So you do have if he would have been gone for a longer amount of time, this would have all been you can age 5 days, we won't notice that. If he was gone for 10 years, that'd be a little different.
Could have been a problem.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, we know that the DeLorean breaks down. He pushes it behind the sign, and then he gets this trip into Hill Valley in 1955.
And it's wholesome, no porn.
Mr. Sandman plays.
It's amazing. Yeah. I think why I love this movie is that it's mostly a period piece.
Yeah.
And I love things set in the past.
Definitely.
I would time
and this
travel in a
movie's-
second. It's so cool to me.
Yeah.
Well, especially this movie's version of the 50s is so, like you say, everything's perfect. It's
idyllic.
It's kind of
America
perfect.
was great again back then, or great or something. You know what I'm saying? It's
and it's cool that we get our
romanticized version of 1955,
Yeah.
and it is a lot of fun. But it's so cool bopping around and all that stuff.
Yeah, and it's our second episode with the song "Mr. Sandman" in it because
right.
Sandman was in Halloween too, and now we got Back to the Future with Mr. Sandman.
Yeah.
And
great song.
His walk through the town just again sets you up for how small of a place it is and how much it's different from what he's used to and the time that he's in now.
And how much it's the same,
right?
As well.
Yeah, it's kind of the same.
It's
just
the same
dirtier.
people in the same town. There's just time's gone by.
And they set up the whole fashion sense of things because he's wearing a vest and they call it a life preserver. That's pretty clever. The exchange with the guy in the diner is very entertaining and telling the way that because you introduced the Goldie Wilson part into that. And he said, "Oh, a colored mare. Imagine that." All the little things he says. And this is again where they set up pins. And this is when they start knocking them down.
Yeah.
And with the Pepsi free thing. So I've got a clip of when he gets into the diner here and I want to play it.
Tab, I can't give you a tab unless you order something.
Right, give me a Pepsi free.
You want a Pepsi, pal, you're gonna pay for it.
Look, just give me something without any sugar in it, okay?
Something without sugar.
He's so grumpy.
She's
Now this shot right here is great.
Hey, McFly!
How they're matching and the way they turn.
What do you think you're doing?
Then we see past Biff.
Hey, I'm talking to you, McFly, you Irish bug.
Oh, hey,
Little
Biff.
Billy
Hey,
Zane.
guys, how are you?
Yeah.
You got my homework finished, McFly?
Well, actually, I figured since it wasn't due till Monday.
Hello? Hello? Anybody home? Hey, think, McFly, think. I gotta have time to
Billy Zane was the bomb in
you
the
realize what would
Phantom.
happen if I hand in my homework
And I love that it's a
Exactly
complete
the same.
play.
I'll get
It's
kicked out of
exactly the
school.
same, just with
He's been
schoolwork.
putting up
that
with
happen
the
with
same shit for 30
years. Yeah.
years.
Would you?
Well, now, of course not.
No,
Biff. I wouldn't
no.
want that to happen.
What are you looking at, butthead?
Hey, Biff, get over this guy's life preserver. Dort thinks he's gonna drown.
Yeah. So, how about my homework, McFly?
I love that George laughs at that joke.
Yeah.
I'll finish that on up tonight.
Hey, they're
and
picking
then
on somebody else
bring
for a
it over
second.
first
Yeah,
thing
exactly.
tomorrow morning. Okay, not too early. I sleep in Sundays. Oh, McFly, your shoes untied.
I'm tied.
Don't be so gullible, McFly. Okay. I don't want to see you in here again.
One of the things I wondered about that, at the beginning of that scene where he goes in and he makes the phone call, he tries to find out. Why didn't Lou get more pissed off that he tore a page out of his phone
I thought
book?
the same thing. Like, he's giving him so much shit about everything else.
If he'd have walked in there with that, he'd be like, what the hell did you do to my phone book?
Yeah, you looted in my place here, man. Like, yeah. I
kind of beat you with the fucking phone book, yo.
So he realizes that this is his dad, and that shot of him, like leaning over past George's face, and he's just, like, looking in awe because he can't believe he's seeing his dad 30 years younger, is a great shot. And Crispin Glover's reaction to it is great too. Like, I think Crispin Glover is so good in this. Like, he fit the part for this so well.
He did.
And it's a shame that everything that went down with this movie and him and Robert Zemeckis and all of that did, because I honestly think it hurts him not being in the sequels. And we'll talk about that when we talk about sequels. But so what struck me about this watch is Marty finding out that his dad was a peeping Tom. And like finding out what your parents were really like, that whole juxtaposition and that commentary on learning, he learns what his parents were like at his age. Yeah. I think that's so great because it plays it with the George McFly stuff really well. And that's one thing I do think is a little loose in this is, okay, so Doc invented time travel on this day, but this is also the day that his dad got hit by the car by his grandpa. He met his mom. I find it a little off that all of this happened on the same day.
Well, this is a movie universe where it's like everything in the world is just contained in this town. Basically, we never leave this town.
Yeah,
all three movies, you don't leave this town. You're in this town. It's all about just this town and everyone in this town, and this town is a story, and that's it. I agree. It's a coincidence that all these things sort of happen and mirror each other throughout the thing, but I don't think that's a knock on the script or anything.
My thing I want to know is how many kids has this guy hit?
Yeah,
because he says another kid's in the road. I was like, dang!
And the sound it makes when his head hits.
Oh God, that. Oh.
Now, was George spying on Lorraine?
They don't live across the street from each other, do they? I should know this, but
no, he rode his bike to the tree.
No, I thought that was a different girl. I thought she looked totally different.
Well, the thing is,
that's right. He rose. Yeah.
He hits him with the car, and then the dad gets out and says, "Stella." He looks across the street where Crispin Glover was looking.
Maybe.
Says, I get one of these kids with my car, and I did notice this time too. Sense. Like he does kind of pine over Lorraine, but he's afraid to approach her, and Marty becomes the catalyst for that. So. And even in the beginning, when they're talking about, what were you doing out there that day, George? And he's like, what, Lorraine? Like, what? He responds like he was guilty of something.
He knows.
And he knows that, So I feel like...
He definitely...
Again, more things I'm putting together watching it 30 years.
Sure, yep.
So
probably peeped on every girl with a tree outside of her window. I mean,
maybe so.
It's possible.
And not only that, right in daytime.
Yeah.
Out in the open. Just up in a tree. Yeah, I can't be seen. I'm invisible.
But this does start to show where Lorraine, where Marty steps in place of George and is everything that George isn't in that time. Like he's not like his father. So this is where that confidence thing comes in and where it starts really instilling that into motion. But the reveal of him in the house with the dark, the lights off, and it's his mom's voice, and he's like, man, I had a nightmare. And then you see young Lorraine. If there was any other girl besides Jamie Gertz at this time in my life, it was Leah Thompson.
She's
Leah
so
Thompson.
Cute.
She's adorable in this movie.
But, she is sitting there and he realizes it's her, and she's very shy at first, talking about how his pants are on her hope chest, and it's all very innocent.
As hell.
Oh, she flips
repressed.
on. Yeah, it's the 50s. She's repressed. Yeah. She is all about it.
Yeah, what I want to know, the pants are on the hope chest. Why did they take his pants off? Did
That's
Lorraine
my
take
note
his
right here
pants
is,
off?
Why did she take his pants off?
Did she pick
his
them off?
pants off.
And then
He
I've
woke
never
up
seen a man
just
with
in
purple
time.
underwear. And your name's Calvin?
What was that, Eric?
I said he woke up just in time.
Yeah.
But I think,
Maybe.
you know, purple underwear probably was a little jarring for 1955.
Yeah.
This is something else I picked up on. This one was, you know, they eventually have a son that they name Marty and everything, and I thought that was problematic in the fact that this person looks exactly like that you had interactions with back then, looks exactly like your son, and you named him Marty, but she knows him as Calvin. She calls him Calvin through the whole thing. So it's not till the end where she goes, Marty.
No.
Yeah, he does say people,
he says
people call him Marty.
He says people call him Marty, though.
Yeah, but she still says, okay, Marty, Calvin, Klein. Like she's still in that Calvin.
But she
knows. Even
knows-
later, she still calls him Calvin in school and in the diner and stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, she knows right then. You know, it's like I guess they call you Cal.
Yeah.
It's like no, people call me Marty.
Mhm.
So I mean, it's in there, but
Right. But she's so infatuated with the fact that this cute boy is in her house. She's not paying attention to
All this stuff where she's coming on to him and he's so uncomfortable because it's his mom is hysterical.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the best stuff in the movie is him just trying to get away from her.
Yeah. I love, even her at the dinner table when they're
She
talking.
grabs his leg.
Well, not only that, even before that, it's like maybe you should stay over. You call your mom. She's like, yeah, and he can sleep in my room.
I gotta go.
You're like, whoa,
Yeah.
and then grabs his leg.
And I love that they even allude to Uncle Joey, and he's in the playpen.
Yeah.
He's like,
Bill
"Hey, use these
Burr's
bars,
kid."
kid.
Well, they even said when they take him out, he would cry, so they always have to put him back
Yeah.
in. He's so used to being behind bars.
Did you notice that Lorraine's mom is the mom from Gremlins?
I did not.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yep.
I did not even realize it.
I don't think I ever knew that. Yep. Never made that connection.
Now they've got 4 kids or 5,
Milton,
5.
Sally, Toby, Joey,
and
Lorraine.
Lorraine.
And
Yeah,
the one
so
kid is
5,
the bully, and the one kid is the kid from the Wonder Years and the bully in Monster Squad.
Jason Hervey.
Yep, Jenny's almost famous pick for Monster Squad. We couldn't tell. Is she pregnant with another kid? Like they are like they're going. Mom and Dad are getting busy.
Well, but that's how in the 50s is that
it
way.
was the
People had
50s.
big families. I mean, most people you like
Yeah, no one
that would
was
be my
common
parents
background.
and most of my friends' parents. Some of their aunts and uncles, they have like 8, 9 aunts and uncles
Yeah.
because their parents were part of a big family. You had to have kids to clean the house and paint the side of the house and mow the grass and everything else.
Are we watching Back to the Future or Karate Kid?
Personal workforce, paint the fence.
So he takes off, starts looking for Doc, and that's when he notices Doc's house. And this is a great exchange between the two of them as well. I love how Doc cracks the door open and closes it real fast. It's a good comedic performance for that there. And then the thing on his head is great. Don't say anything. And when he sticks the plunger on his head,
he licks it first.
Yeah, he licks it. This one's definitely not COVID friendly.
No.
Quiet. But I love, like, you can tell that Marty is in awe that he's found Doc and that Doc is alive and everything. But the look on his face when he's like, Michael J. Fox has this look of amazement on his face when he finally finds Doc.
Yeah.
And then when Doc's trying to guess who he is and everything, and he yanks the thing off of his head, it just makes the popping noise. It's so good. But then Doc comes up with proves that this damn thing doesn't work at all.
Another failed invention.
Yep.
So, and it sets that up perfectly, and he starts asking him about the future and who the president is,
and the craziest thing that he could have said is that Ronald Reagan is the president.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially in that time.
Actor.
Yeah. That's how he thought that he was
Who's
crazy.
his vice?
Yeah.
What did he say? Vice president was Jerry
Lewis.
Yep.
This movie series, is scary.
It's scary how close some of
its
these predictions.
Yeah.
Particularly too, but that's for another time.
Not quite Jaws 19, but
Right. Really, really personal.
yeah.
This movie and The Simpsons got it right, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Simpsons, they told us what was to come.
Yeah.
They were the fortune tellers.
But they decide that Marty has to go and find his dad and get his parents together because he's already interrupted the timeline. and they see the picture and his brother's fading, and so now he's on a mission to get them together.
Which is a very clever gag to have throughout the movie. Is that that's your judge of how bad this is getting? Like you're here for 5 days. Within 5 days, you could be erased from existence.
3 people could be erased.
Yeah, there was one thing I noticed in there when they first show, like he's trying to prove the doc he's from the future, and he shows the picture. He says, "Look, you can tell it's a fake. They cut your brother's hand off."
Yeah,
and that's the first time. It took me probably years to watch it and to go and his hand was already gone. See, that was the predecessor of his brother's head missing later. It's like, whoa, his hand was already gone, and he didn't even notice it.
And Doc chalks it up to fakery and whatnot.
Mediocre photographic paper.
But then when he tells him the story about how he invented the flux capacitor, that's when we really get the ball rolling. I do find it troubling that they were able to hook this video camera up to this TV.
Yeah. Well, there's another deleted scene about that.
Yeah.
Doc's a scientist, man. He can figure it out.
Yeah.
I still got my hair. This thing I'm wearing.
I
Well,
like this part.
this is a radiation suit.
Radiation suit.
They really didn't even have to do the makeup on him. He doesn't really look any different
Not
in
much.
1985.
This.
It's a couple of lines here and there, and that's it.
Yeah.
A portable television studio.
I wonder your
No
president
wonder your
is an actor.
president has to be an actor. He's got to look good on television.
Whoa, this is it. This is the part coming up, Doc.
No. This sucker's electrical. But I need a nuclear reaction to generate the 1.21 gigawatts of electricity.
What did I just say?
He can't even understand his own jargon.
Yeah. I think it just blew his mind, though.
Yeah.
But I need a nuclear reaction to generate the 1.21 gigawatts of electricity.
1.21 gigawatts!
He
Look at him.
like, son of
His
a
mind
bitch.
is blown.
He's like, you know what you
And
got.
I love Marty. I love Marty right here.
What the hell is a gigawatt?
Do you mean gigawatt?
Yeah, Marty knew the right pronunciation for that word. He's like, what are you talking about, a gigawatt? It's called a gigawatt.
You guys are starting to make me come around on the overacting thing. Like it
couldn't have been any other way.
It's pretty good.
I even love the conversation he has with Thomas Edison there.
Yeah.
It's like
one thing they kind of throw away here is he does have a little dog when Marty gets there, and then they completely throw that to the wayside. You never go back to that dog in this movie.
In this one, yeah. He comes back to him in the second one,
But then they've got to go to the school to find his parents. He's got some slick 50s threads on now.
Yeah.
And you see his father being relentlessly bullied by everybody who comes around him. And then Strickland
is
the one who goes in and says, "You're a slacker."
Yeah, dude, this is your fault.
Because he's being bullied?
It's terrible. Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah. And he's still around 30 years later, which is the amazing
Does that guy
part.
ever have hair?
Yeah. No McFly will amount to anything in Hill Valley. So that's what they keep. I mean, I think the principal's just as bad as Biff.
But I
think about it.
Marty's realization of where things have gotten now, that's the moment when Marty realizes, she felt bad for him because her dad hit me with the car. He really realizes how much he fucked things up. Just hit, and his doing good action changed everything up. So now he's gonna have to work to fix it.
And how difficult it will be to fix, because it's not just, hey, George, ask her out. It's, this guy's like the biggest loser in school. Like you have to fix him.
But you get those great conversations between he and George. George is very, he doesn't want to do anything because he's afraid of rejection.
But they're both creative. They're
Right.
both They're both artists.
And
Like,
Marty didn't even know that about his dad until this, finding this out now.
They're both artists that are, afraid of rejection and all that kind of stuff. And it is a nice little moment there.
Yeah, and you see that realization of when he was writing stories, science fiction stories. Just, let me read some, and it's like, no, I never, it's like, what if they said they was no good? I couldn't take that rejection, and it's like, I guess that'd be hard for somebody to understand.
Which is the same thing he said to Jennifer,
right?
Earlier,
And you see Marty, you see that those pieces fitting together, in his eyes, when he says that. But
it gives Marty the idea, like Marty has something to go off of now, because George says Nobody on Earth is going to get me to do this. And then it's like, okay, all right.
Challenge accepted.
But before we get there, we get just a little light harassment and threat of rape on the part of Biff towards Lorraine.
Yeah, we'll get
These are all the things that are like adult things in movies marketed towards children from the 80s that you didn't know were happening.
Right.
When you watched the movie.
Yeah, Biff is a rapist.
He is.
Pretty much. How terrible a person Biff is.
Yeah. He's the worst.
The worst. And just the utter lack of accountability for what he, and we'll get to this at the end, with, kind of what culminates, in the scene at the dance. But
that's the thing that's always stuck with me about Biff is he knows how to take advantage of the people he can take advantage of.
Right.
It's like, you know what would happen if I turned in my stuff in your handwriting? I get kicked out of school. Like, he uses mind games.
Right.
And George is smarter than he is. It almost gives Biff a little bit of an edge over your normal bully because he's like getting into their psychology a little bit.
But
he's also funny. Like, he's a huge asshole and a rapist, but he's also funny. Like Thomas Wilson or Thomas F. Wilson. I don't know how, but I love his performance as Biff because he's both, abhorrent, but also funny and goofy. And,
he is a good antagonist.
Yeah. He plays it so well.
Yeah.
I mean, and he plays it. Yeah. He's funny and he's goofy, but like the way he plays it so straight that it's, I mean,
he's not in on the joke at all.
No. And I mean, by all accounts, you've heard, I mean, Thomas Wilson is like the nicest guy in the world, know?
Right.
This must have been
for as goofy as he is, in the moments when he gets really pissed off, he is scary. Like, when he really gets angry,
legitimately scary.
Shit, like Biff's mad, like,
But this is when I really noticed Marty, like, Marty is not a pushover. Like, Marty steps up to Biff. He grabs him and pulls him away. He says, hey, he said, take your hands
off.
Mom, hooks off.
Yeah. And he's not afraid to stand up. Like, he's finding that in himself here. And that's one thing I think is great. Like, it's that complete turn from your normal 80s character where they are shy, they're not willing to step up, and then in the end, that's what you get. No, Marty's willing to do that from the beginning. And he's got to instill that in his parents. Yep. He's got to get them to where they need to be. And I think that's great.
It's angle. It's a good flip, because your parents are the ones that's supposed to instill these things into you as you're growing up. And now it's the reverse role. He's having to do that with his dad. So his dad can have a better life, obviously. And also to get him to hook up with his mom.
Well, it shows that they did instill that in him and they didn't want him to make the mistakes they made. Mm-hmm. So now he's course correcting their mistakes a little bit. It's kind of a free pass a little bit if you think about it. But
make like a tree and get out of here.
So
I love that line.
So he threatens to melt his brain.
Yeah, Marty figures out how he can get his dad to ask his mom out. And this is one of the best fucking scenes in this movie. And I've got the clip of this too, and we're going to play it.
Very Friday the 13th right here.
Well, we pan over and he's reading, and I even love that the art and like the comic in the beginning and the art on his book is resembles what Marty's wearing.
I like there. Edward Van Halen.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace, man.
Who are you? My name is Darth Vader.
Oh, shit.
I am an extraterrestrial from
planet Vulcan.
Oh, this is
we got Star Wars and Star Trek in the same thing.
There is a longer deleted scene of that I haven't watched, but it's perfect the way it is.
Yeah. Does the grown-up cool dad George at the end of the movie really think that he was visited by an alien in high school?
I wonder. I mean, it's up for debate.
Yeah, I
mean,
mean,
you see the cover art on his book when it's delivered.
It's that guy. I mean,
is it an autobiography?
Well, it's called A Match Made in Space.
Well, if you look at the cover, it's a guy in a yellow suit and it's a guy and a girl on
bringing
the front of
the two people together.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Maybe he thought he was.
So, and this sets George into motion. He's like, "Oh, I'm not getting my brain fried by Darth Vader."
On the planet Vulcan.
So, and it surprises me they were able to use some of that stuff like Vader and Vulcan and all that stuff. But he automatically runs into town. Hey, I got to ask this girl out. This is going to happen today. But him taking the notes from Marty is so bad.
Just pushing his hair out of the way.
That
He's
one
half tucked in.
That one strand of hair that's on the other side that's too long.
It's like, could you take care of that?
Oh,
sorry.
man.
I just love the scene when he gets into the diner and was it Lou?
Yeah.
He says, Lou, milk and make it chocolate. And it slides to him and he slams it. It's all you need is chocolate milk to get you through the day.
And I've even noticed the little things like them paying for their drinks and whatnot. Like, this is how much I've been picking this movie apart. Like, even when Marty's there earlier and he's like, just give me something without sugar. He pulls out change and puts it on the counter. And even then with George, he puts down a quarter. Yeah, and he grabs it up.
Yep.
They don't do this anymore in movies. They don't think about those little nuances unless you've got
well, it would be pretty boring in a movie nowadays if he's like, give me a chocolate milk, and then he has to run his card. He's got like a pin pad,
Is that debit or credit?
How do I do credit?
Yeah, the guy's like, swipe it again. Swipe it again.
It's a chip, man. It's a chip.
I got Apple Pay. Does your Apple Pay work? I need Apple Pay.
What the hell's Apple Pay?
Yeah.
If you want something, you're not paying me with no apples.
I'm not paying you with fruit. What the hell you think this is?
The furthest in the future they go back in Back to the Future, we've already passed in our present. So that was a lot of words.
Yep.
But this is where, again, Marty has to step in. And, George goes and tries to make his plea to Lorraine. And then
You're
Marty,
my density.
You're my density has brought you to me. She's like, what? What? But of course,
but
Marty,
she does like him. She does, like, you can see that when he starts to talk to her, she's
really just smitten over boys.
She is, except for Biff, who's an asshole.
Right. Like, and there's good reason why she's not smitten over Biff. I think, honestly, this sounds bad, but it could have been any cute boy. Like, she was just at that point where like she wanted somebody to take her to the dance, somebody to park with, like, and Marty just happened to be it. And now it's.
Well, that was the main focus
you're
of.
right. She was out on the prowl.
Yeah,
well, that's like the main focus of girls and women in the 50s is the only thing that they're valued for is finding a husband and having children. And so that's instilled in her very early that's what she's doing with her life. And, finding someone who's almost 18. I mean, she's almost marrying age, You gotta.
But she's also rebellious. I mean, she's also smoking and drinking in the car, and she even says to Marty, "You're starting to sound like my mother." Like, you can tell she's finding that about herself.
I think she's just a high school girl.
Yeah, but this is where we get the other breakout scene from this movie, and the thing that the kids always take away from this is when he rips the thing off and the makeshift skateboard. Now,
he invents skateboarding.
He invents the skateboard.
He invented it. Not Tony Hawk. No, just kidding.
So who invented it when he was skateboarding to the mall in the beginning of the movie? That's what I'm talking about. He had a skateboard before he invented the skateboard. So are we in that loop?
Oh, yeah. What loop are we in? Or, come on, Josh. Explain to us. What loop are we in, Josh?
Or did the guy who invented the skateboard before is that kid, that homeless guy on the bench? He never got as well.
No, it was the kid that he took the scooter from. He's like, whoa, that's cool.
It could be.
I actually have a theory about the guy on the bench at the end, and I'll talk about him when we get to the end of the movie.
I always thought there was something about that guy. I forgot what his name was. Because
we'll talk about it now because he's already in 1955. When the truck's going around and they're promoting the mayor of the town, his name's Red Thomas.
Yep.
At the end of the movie, when Michael J. Fox gets back and he sees the bum on the park bench, he says, "Red, you look great." I think that's supposed to be Red Thomas from
Oh,
1955.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah, I never put that together, dude.
I can't find
He
proof of it.
doesn't
though.
look old enough
Former
to me.
disgraced
But
I think he wouldn't be old enough.
I can't find proof of it though, because in the credits they just list him as a bum.
Yeah, and he
So-
he probably would have
That's
been
not
way
very nice.
older. But like the fact that his name is
Yeah. I think it's a fun thing to play around with, but it's probably not there.
Yeah.
But until somebody tells me otherwise, I'm going to run with it.
Go with it.
I'm going with it, Josh. I got your back, bro.
And
So-
the amazing move of running over the car as the
Oh,
skateboard
that's
rolls
amazing.
underneath.
Yeah.
I love
So
it.
cool. And then the manure drop, so satisfying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We love
Again-
to abuse Biff. Any
Yeah.
chance we get to
Absolutely.
drop shit on Biff, it's hilarious.
Yeah, and again with the skateboarding, like I said earlier, dude, I made every time I watched this movie, and I had a skateboard, and I did skateboard around my little town that I grew up in. You want to go out and go skateboarding every time you saw that, but I would say I've never tried the whole car trick where he throws the board under the car and walks over and gets back.
I'm
on
glad
the
you have
board.
not tried that.
No, no, dude, I ate the asphalt enough with the whole trying to do it behind a car or a 4-wheeler. No, I wasn't doing that. But yeah, that again with the music and the skateboarding, that made a big difference in my life. This movie, just that parts.
Totally.
Yeah, the skateboard though is problematic. It doesn't have proper trucks on it. He wouldn't have been turning corners the way it was.
Oh no. And it had metal wheels, man. That's hard.
I do like that the wheels are smoking when he picks it up and hands it
yeah.
back to the kid though. That's pretty good
Yeah.
because it's shooting the sparks whenever he's grinding. So he thinks George has done the deed and asked her out at this point, and goes back to see Doc, and that's when we get the great thing where he makes the town. He's like, "I'm sorry I couldn't make it to scale and paint it."
You're like, dude, that's one of the best. That's right up there with the freaking Edward Scissorhands model, like one step below.
He didn't have enough to do with, inventing time travel and making all these contraptions.
right.
He had to make a model as well. But it's really cool. It's made out of milk bottles.
Yeah,
that are
you can
painted
see all
and
the
stuff.
stuff he made it out of.
Yeah.
It's pretty neat.
And then you get hit the demo with the car going down and getting hit with the battery charge, and then
dude,
That's my
that's what I was gonna
favorite.
get at. Dude, I cannot tell you how many times I have rewound this movie just to hear Doc make that noise.
And the
in
way
that
his
face.
mouth just kind of
Yeah.
opens crooked.
It's a cartoon face.
Yeah.
It's like,
Oh my
it's
god!
amazing.
I mean, that is right in my note because I think I wore that part of the VHS out just going back to that part because my little brother liked it too, and we would just go back and just keep laughing at that.
that response is great. There's another one later. It's funny enough at the bell tower that I actually love even more. And we'll talk about that when he gets there.
I love the design of the pole that goes off the car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how just the whole plan and how that pole just has like a long piece of like thick copper wire at the end. Like,
Yeah.
that's all it is. Just it just looks like it was pieced together by a crazy scientist in his garage. you know?
Yeah.
It's great. And I love that the wind-up car hits a bucket of oily rags.
Yes,
It's
just,
got a bucket of
just
oily
chilling
rags.
in the corner. Like I'll get to these one day.
Like every fireman would always, anytime you heard about like fire safety, bucket of oily rags.
Yeah. But Lorraine shows up there. She's followed him to Doc Brown's. And
Stalker.
She wants him to ask her to the dance.
And she says, "I hope this isn't too forward." She's been nothing but forward this entire movie.
And remember,
She took his pants off while he was unconscious.
And remember, girls didn't chase boys in my day.
Exactly. But so then Marty kind of concocts a plan like, well, we'll go to the dance together. And then he pulls his dad in and is like, you're going to come save me.
It's a brilliant
like
plan.
save her from me because she wants a man who's strong.
Right.
Hey, here's a question. And his plan is better, admittedly, but she keeps hitting on him and he has a hard time getting away sometimes,
Yeah.
because she's after him. So why doesn't he just say he's gay?
That was not a thing in the 50s, Eric.
Yeah.
I know,
it was a
but
thing, but
he
people
could
didn't
still,
openly say
it
it.
still would have worked, right?
Well,
were
at
gay
that
in the
time, as
50s.
homophobic as 1980 was, I don't think he would have been giving out that information. We've seen this in all of the movies we've reviewed
Biff
so
and his
far.
crew would have really gone after him if they thought he was gay. I
Yeah,
guess.
then this would have turned into like a chasing him through the town with pitchforks
Yeah,
kind of movie.
this would have been a bad thing.
which is terrible, but it's what would have happened.
Yeah, because they're trying to stay consistent with the way 1955 was, even with some of the other comments that even come up later.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that would have been bad.
But to be completely honest, I will go ahead and jump ahead here a little bit. This movie is very reserved compared to what we've seen so far.
Yep.
This movie does a very good job with staying in between the lines pretty well. I mean, the Biff stuff is very bad. Like that is
as a child though, it was like Pepe Le Pew, which
a little bit,
is problematic.
He's
nowadays,
also a rapist,
but,
yes.
Right.
But it was it was always like, oh, he's trying to hold her down and like give her kisses or something.
Yeah.
I was a kid. I didn't know.
Kids don't even know.
You know, you don't really know all the ins and outs of rape and all that when you're a child, you know, hopefully. So, you know,
or figure them out, period. You don't.
Yeah, it was just like he's holding her down. He's trying to smooch her. She doesn't like it. That's how I viewed it when I was a little kid, you know.
And all of this kind of culminates a little bit later. Well, we're kind of getting to the dance now because this is when the plan gets set in motion. He's got her in the car. They're parking. And the revelation comes out that when she kisses him, it feels like she's kissing her brother.
I love that she realizes it's wrong.
Yeah.
And thank God she does, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Like for her character, because otherwise she would just be like kind of gross in this movie.
Yeah.
But the fact that once she actually acts on it, it doesn't work. She knows something.
And Marty's response and the way he's got his eyes open the whole time they're kissing, and he knows that it's almost like he knows that moment was just felt. Like he knows she's going to come back from this and be like, this isn't right. And you can kind of see that in his face a little bit. And then he even says, you know, no, that's not weird at all. Like I completely understand where you're coming from. But
when we get some more Crispin Glover dancing too. I just want to, before we go too far. This is our second movie with Crispin Glover dance in it.
Not nearly as good as the first movie with Crispin Glover.
Not near as good as Friday 13th Part 4, dude.
But he could cut a rug for 50s music. Oh, sure. So, but he couldn't have established that Biff was going to be the one to open the door and not George, because George is running late because he's dancing in the gym.
Yep. Because he's a slacker.
Yeah.
Can't show up on time.
And I really like the way they play this whole exchange because it seems like it really has stakes. Like as bad as it is that Biff is this way and he's very, harassing Lorraine the way he is, like you feel the stakes there. You feel bad that Marty's been carried off and that now she's alone with Biff. Like that felt heavy.
Yeah.
And not only
to quote Marty at that time, that felt heavy.
Hey,
why is everything so heavy in the future?
Yeah, is there something wrong with the Earth's gravitational pull?
But no, but you make a good point about the stakes because everything up to this point was about fixing the future. But in this moment, you kind of forget about that. That's not really the priority. The priority is, his mom's in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is fixing something for right now.
And now is the moment of truth. Like George has to step up here. If he doesn't, this is going to be a bad situation. Yeah. And that whole, they carry Marty off, throw him into the back of the trunk, and this is where a lot of the age stuff comes in here, and they throw him into the back of the truck with the band. The exchange between the bullies and them is good too because he's like, "Hey, beat it, Spook!" And he's like, "Who you calling Spook? Peckerwood?" Like, I love that whole thing, and
I love when Josh does like a black voice. It's good stuff.
Jesus.
But yeah, that's that whole 1955 thing. It's like there's certain things they haven't touched on, but that is very much the way it was in 1955.
But then they're making a little statement here. The movie, I mean, But then they kind of screw it up when Marty.
A little bit. That's
yeah. I like that they went because this car's all smoky, and you're talking about reefer addicts, and that was part of the time back then.
Reefer addicts.
We don't have nothing to do with no reefer addicts here. Another nice racist comment.
Yeah, you can be racist, but don't be a reefer addict.
Yeah.
So we've talked a little while. We're getting closer to the climax of the movie, and I want to go ahead and go into one of our segments here. We're going to do Almost Famous.
Almost Famous.
I know that, dude.
I don't know them. I know her.
Haven't you ever heard of that guy? What's his name?
That guy who was in that movie that was out last year.
So we've gotten our core cast members in line here so we can talk a little bit about who we see. Like I wrote down Thomas Wilson, Biff, just because I didn't really see him in a ton more stuff after Back to the Future. I can name a few things that he was in. But I also included Crispin Glover. We had him on our Friday the 13th. Like I still think Billy Zane.
But Billy Zane, he had a pretty good career. A lot of people know him.
He did.
Well,
like this is truly his, like, not even almost famous. Like, this is before famous Billy Zane.
Yeah. I was even throwing in Dave McFly.
Yeah,
the
Martin
brother.
McClure,
he was in Superman movies as Jimmy Olsen.
Other than the fourth one, they were all before Back to the Future. So I mean, you're talking almost famous. I mean, Martin McClure. I mean, there's stuff that you know him from. I mean, I think he's a really good actor, and he just, I don't know, he did a lot of things, but
I forgot all about the fact that he was Jimmy Olsen.
Yeah,
he was Jimmy Olsen in all the Superman movies.
I mean, the only two things. I mean, he was in Apollo 13. I mean, at least for me, things that like I know him from.
Yeah.
After that, he played Glenn Lunny. He was a flight commander, like the backup flight commander, and then just this little piece of a part in That Thing You Do, which I know is a favorite.
Oh yeah.
But and it seemed. I guess maybe it was Tom Hanks' connection from Apollo 13 or whatever. But he only had a few lines, but I was like, hey, that's Mark McClure.
Hey, but you also got James Tolkien, the Mr. Strickland. He was in Top Gun.
Masters of the
and
Universe.
he was. I'm about to say he was in Josh's movie that he loves, and we're not going to get into that Masters Universe. Yeah, that was horrible.
I had put down Claudia Wells, who plays Jennifer. I really can't even tell you anything else she was in. Like you said, Fast Times at Ridgemont High earlier. I don't even remember her in that.
Yeah, I think it was a small part, and in a Herbie movie. It was nothing major. It was just a part. But that's really about it.
There's not that many people in this movie.
Yeah.
No, it's true.
Well, there are a couple more I wanted to mention. I mean, I did mention the mom from Gremlins.
Yeah, that was a good one.
That was a good, like another one that I wouldn't have known her name until I looked it up for this, but I've seen her in other stuff. And there's also Courtney Gaines, which, Jason, do you know who I'm talking about? Courtney Gaines. Children of the Corn.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
The redheaded
Malachi.
kid. Yeah,
yes.
Malachi. Yep. He's the one who's
Outlander.
He's one of the kids who's picking on George, and he actually steals Lorraine away from George at the dance.
That's right.
Yes.
He was he Malachi?
Yeah, he was Malachi.
Yeah.
He's also in The Burbs.
He's in a ton of stuff.
That's right.
I got to looking at his stuff like TV and film. He's been in a ton of shit. He was also in the remake of Halloween, which we won't talk about.
Let's not talk about that.
Well, he's my pick then. Like, because he's in a bunch of stuff, and you just like, hey, that's a redheaded guy.
Yeah, I would definitely go Courtney Gaines or the mom from Gremlins. Like, but
Jason Hervey also, which you mentioned earlier, was this movie.
So
let's get to the bit showing up, George showing up to the car.
Yeah, now we got George showing up to the car, and he has to confront Biff. He sees what's going down. This is the moment of truth. When he goes,
you get two amazing moments here. I think it's just thinking about it, because you always think of the punch.
Yeah,
but the moment before that where he
is
has
so
a chance
bad.
to close the door.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
So
What's
when
bad?
when Biff,
it's a joke.
When Biff gets out of the car and when George is confronting Biff and Biff gets out, George goes to hit him one time, and it's just this wimpy little like right arm, and Biff catches it.
I'm talking about before that, when Biff says just close the door and walk away.
Yeah.
And George says, no, Biff.
Yeah.
That moment, I think, is a huge moment as well.
Yes.
Even before you get the next big moment.
Yeah.
His backbone really grew at that point.
Because, this scene was so intense. I mean, it's hard to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Leah Thompson's delivery of this, I mean, it's absolutely just heart-wrenching.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, help me, George, help me, George.
George, help me, please. I mean, just those 4 words and the desperation with which she delivers that line. It's
absolutely.
It's painful.
I also
to watch.
I love Crispin Glover though, because he's rehearsed, he's done, and he's expecting to open that door and see Marty, and he goes for it. He's, hey, you get your damn like he falters when he sees it's Biff, which I mean he would do. But that's that moment when he says no, Biff. Like that's when he's like makes that change, and but yeah, when he's bending his arm, when Biff's bending his arm back and he clenches that fist, like The way they
He
shoot
pushes
that, it goes
Lorraine
from his
down,
face, goes to the fist, and then it's just he wails the shit out of Biff.
It's such a, again, more great performance from what's his name? Thomas Wilson.
Yeah.
When Biff spins around
Yeah.
hits the
Yeah.
car, like, yeah, I mean,
It
that,
just
for all
melts
the
down the
things,
side of the car.
Yeah. And for all the things that make this movie great, and when you think about what you love about this movie, or at least when I do, I think of Marty and Doc, and I love Marty and Doc so much. But this scene, they're not in it, and this is one of the greatest scenes in cinematic history. I mean, this is an epic moment in movie history. And the George punching Biff. I mean, that is like, that's probably the best moment of the film. If
It's a great left hook right there, buddy.
Yeah.
So,
literally.
So that got me thinking, though, about like how this changes their future.
Yeah.
So obviously the story of how they met changes.
Mm-hmm.
Does she tell her children, your father saved me from a rapist at the Enchantment Under the Sea dance?
Yeah.
And then she has to see him
That's what
every day for 30 years.
That is, there is no way in hell
No.
that Biff
No.
should be in their lives, regardless of
if he's waxing their car, or whatever.
regardless of the epic payback that he's getting. It pales in comparison to the things that Biff did. I mean, why in the hell is he still around?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's only there to show that Biff's life has been ruined, basically.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, why would you just hire a different guy to do your car?
Yeah.
Yep.
Come on.
But when he finally hits Biff and he takes Lorraine's hand, she comes out of the car and the score kicks in right there. It is a great moment.
Oh yeah.
And
you see the
Marty,
stars in her eyes, man.
And you
Her
see
dress
Marty,
is lovely.
Yeah, her dress is great.
She's all
You see
peachy
Marty run
and-
up and he's like, "Great, it happened."
Yeah.
But he knows that they go back to the photo. The photo's still changing. His sister's almost completely gone.
Yeah, Marvin Berry can't play guitar because he hurt his hand getting him out of the trunk.
And again, another pin they set up of him needing to perform in front of people to get his confidence up and all that. He's like, unless you know somebody who can play the guitar.
Well, it just so happens.
As a matter of fact, I do.
So this is my second
Here's
one.
my hot take.
Hot take.
Hot take. Hot take.
Hot take.
Uh-oh.
All of Michael J. Fox's musical performance is terrible. I'm sorry.
Yeah. If you're,
I love his
so
vocals.
sorry. His
It is
vocals
bad.
are so bad.
Well, he's not
Oh,
actually
God.
singing. I mean,
No,
Whoever they got to sing.
I shouldn't put it on Michael J. Fox, but the performance part of this does not hold up for me at all. Especially, it's so blatantly clear that it's not even remotely close to Michael J. Fox singing this song.
No.
I'll admit, and I don't want to, but I'll admit that the voice doesn't seem to totally match.
Yeah.
Especially given his I mean, just looking at him, it doesn't sound like he looks, but he does have that kind of higher pitched, kind of crackly voice. But
Now the Earth Angel,
the performance doesn't bother me. I like as far as him acting. Is that what you're saying?
No. And that's that was just kind of my lead into this. The acting is fine. The acting is really good, actually. It's just the way they paired the singing over him, and it doesn't quite match. I mean, this is really me being super nitpicky, and also like I'm a musician.
yeah, you're looking at it.
Like I know when I can tell when the person who I've seen talking this whole movie is not singing this song.
Sure.
Well, even some of the guitar parts, you're like, that don't add up. That's not where that note is on the guitar. No.
But the Earth Angel performance is awesome.
Yeah.
And fun fact, Josh and I danced to Earth Angel at our prom.
Yep, we sure did.
Love it.
That's the only song we danced
That's
to
the
at
only
our
song
prom.
we danced to.
Well, you have to
Hey,
dance into that one.
Josh danced
I
other
did.
than that and his wedding.
Yep.
That song, he danced to that song and the Tootsie Roll.
I danced at your wedding, Jason. Remember, I slid across the floor and started doing the solo from Purple Rain.
Yeah,
I consider that dancing.
Wow. Yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds cool. We'll have to get that. We have that on camera.
We unfortunately do not have that on camera.
Do not
but
have that on camera.
You'll have
or
to
video.
recreate it.
I was very drunk and doing my best Prince impression.
Yeah. And Josh has also been known to do the Thriller dance very well.
Yeah.
So
The guy stealing Lorraine away from him,
Yeah.
like just blatantly, the toxic masculinity
Oh, it was terrible.
Yeah.
in the 50s just...
And it really puts you on George's side, too. With that. Like,
he's the good guy,
Yeah.
even though he's a little bit of a peeping Tom creep, but...
Right.
Very true.
Good guy.
Barring
even though
that
he's a
little
peeping
detail.
He's not acting physically on his urges. He's trying to get rid
they
of them
didn't
a
have
different
porn
way.
in the 50s. So
We all,
Sure.
we all have a
They had
dirty
ooh la
side
la,
to
which was
ourselves.
I feel like the one more Lorraine getting stolen by the redheaded guy is maybe just one too many. We kind of just
like I do feel like it's kind of shoehorned in there, but he still isn't. He's super confident.
He's
like,
incrementally getting that confidence that he needs.
And it also gives us that crescendo because you hear Marty playing this song. He's starting to fade away because it's all in danger at this point.
Yeah.
Like, I can see why it is there. It is a little much, but...
Well, it is there to drum up the drama in that moment, so whatever. It's not a big deal. I love
George's approach to the guy, and he's like, excuse me, and pushes him, like, pushes his ass down.
Straight down.
And like, it just shows, like, how much confidence he's got now and how much Marty's helped him get there. So, and then from there, we get Johnny Be Good.
And it's funny that it's Marvin Berry, and if you're a musician, you know that Chuck Berry wrote the song, and
he calls Chuck Berry
Marvin Berry.
That's
He's
the part.
a very generous cousin.
Yeah, he could have just kept all that for himself, but he decided to give it to his cousin Marvin. Or Chuck.
Yeah, and then we go from Chuck Berry's song to half Eddie Van Halen, half Prince.
Yeah.
At the end of it, and your kids just aren't ready for this.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite quotes. Is I guess you guys aren't ready for that. Kids are gonna love it.
You're gonna love it.
So that'll get us. We're gonna do another segment here real quick, and it's you're gonna need a bigger quote segment.
You're gonna need a bigger quote.
Jason, give me some taglines from this bad boy.
The taglines you would have seen on movie posters and ads throughout 1985 for the movie Back to the Future. See, we got the story of a young man with a great future behind him. Let's say, I don't know about that one. He was never in time for his classes. He wasn't in time for dinner. Then one day he wasn't in his time at all. That's a really long.
I kind of like that. It's a long for a tagline. It's more of a summary.
Yeah. I see.
An introduction.
Cliff Notes version of the whole movie.
He's the only kid to get in trouble before he was born.
That one's good.
That
one's not bad.
Dude, when I looked these up, there's literally like 2 pages of them.
I looked this up as well, and some of these are bad and they're long.
Oh, yeah.
And
let's see, was it 17-year-old Marty McFly got home early last night, 30 years early.
That's a stretch.
Yeah, these are all pretty.
It should just be like, he got home, early, 30 years early,
Right.
not teenager, 17 years old,
Yeah.
Marty McFly.
And
from Hill Valley.
Yeah. And then the last one I wrote out of the 300 that I found says Marty McFly is having the time of his life. The only question is, what time is it?
Yeah, perfect.
There you go. But what are some of the quotes that we all thought were great from this? I mean, I have my personal favorite that carries on forever, and that's the Great Scott.
Great Scott.
That's a good one.
Great Scott!
Yep.
You get it a bunch of times. Yep. It's great.
What are you looking at, butthead?
That's a good one.
I had
There's
that
a good one.
Yeah.
That's heavy, man.
Yeah.
What do you got, Eric?
Let's see. I have one. I'm sorry. Why is everything so heavy in the future? I like that one. I like make like a tree and get out of here.
I have that one down too.
You get your damn hands off her. That's a good one too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I kind of like You're My Density.
That's a good one.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Density.
Make like a tree and get out of here. That one's one of my favorites.
1.21 gigawatts.
Yeah, and then the 1.21 gigawatts, that's almost said as much as Great Scott.
Well, I mean, when this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're going to see some serious shit.
Yeah.
That was one I
I
had.
think that's the best.
I mean,
That's the most hardcore one in the movie. I would agree with that.
Or you can go all the way to the end and say, Roads, where we're going, We don't need roads.
That's a great one too, Jenny.
Put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything.
Yeah. All right, so
Marty's leaving the dance. He's got to get to the clock tower, but not before he says goodbye to George and Lorraine. And he says, if you ever have a kid, if he ruins the carpet when he's 8, take it easy on him. And so I imagine that the explanation for why this isn't an issue is that your memory gets fuzzy as you get older, but she just doesn't remember that the person who introduced them looks exactly like the son that she has.
if I were George, I would be a little worried. Like, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Did you meet
dude,
up with Calvin Klein at some point?
Did Calvin come back into town and have a little, milkman incident while I was out of town? What's up?
I love how this movie has 2 climaxes.
Yeah.
Like you have the climax
3 really
at the dance, and then we just immediately we've taken care of that problem, but there are still things that need to happen here, and Doc's waiting, and I love when he's like, "Damn, where's that kid?"
and he keeps going, "Damn, damn."
Different watch every time.
Yeah.
Damn. So this whole I'm glad you brought that up, Eric, because when he pulls up to the dance, it feels like the end of the movie's coming, but you still have 3 big sequences left to go from here. You've got the dance sequence, then the going back sequence, and then still the end of the movie. Mm-hmm. Even though
it's like Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, but it still feels so natural.
Yeah.
Well, the him getting back to the future is the kind of the end of the film. Like it's not another climax. I wouldn't describe that as another climax. I think there's 2 climaxes and then
a wrap up.
Yeah, a wrap up at the end. /
segue into we're gonna make another one of these.
Yeah, exactly.
I have all the climaxes.
Another quote I like is flux capacitor fluxing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we didn't really talk about Marty wrote Doc a letter to tell him about the future so he would know that he was going to die the night that he
and
goes
Doc
back
doesn't
in time.
want it.
And Doc doesn't want it. He doesn't want to change time. It could be very, very detrimental and screw things up. So you get the exchange with him. He finds the letter. He tears it up. He doesn't want the responsibility. This is when the cable comes loose from the clock tower. And at the beginning of this, he tells them they have 7 minutes and some odd seconds to get all of this done. It feels like the sequence from where Marty gets the rope and gives him the thing takes longer than that. I didn't time it, but this is where I'm getting with this movie is how down to the nose did they get with these things? But Doc up on the bell tower has one of the parts that I don't like. One of the parts of Doc's performance I don't like, but there's also, we talked about earlier when he's in the car, when the car catches the things on fire and when he goes to plug the thing in and it's caught on the tree and he realizes that he can't plug it in and he just goes, that one's my favorite. His face there and the way he screams is so good.
But there's another that his attitude or his mood shifts so dramatically from just a few seconds before.
Yeah.
Because he's sitting there and he's got the two plugs.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at him and he's got this swagger. I'm gonna plug these in. I just and they don't plug in, and then he breaks the one on the bottom.
Yeah.
And it's just funny the 180 that he pulls from one to the next,
which is completely Marty's fault, by the way, because you think if your job was to get the cable for the person who's going up on the clock tower, you would take it from under the tree that caused it to snap in the first place. Anyway,
Marty's 17 and 17-year-olds are stupid.
But you brought this up while we were watching. Doc slides down the cable. He wraps it around the arm and slides down the cable.
It's not attached to anything.
But it's attached to the limb.
It's holding the limb is keeping the pressure on it.
So
if Marty would have taken it off of the limb, he would not have been able to slide down.
To be fair, though, if he hadn't taken it off the limb, he wouldn't have had to slide it
exactly.
down. Yeah, because he wouldn't have pulled it apart.
Yeah.
Right.
What came first, the limb or...
What time loop are we in now? Time loop 12, 13?
But also,
Where are we at?
he has to have some incredible upper body strength.
Oh, for sure.
For this to be believed.
Because he does all of this holding on to one of them.
Hanging with one and down with the other.
Dude,
and
1955 Doc is swole.
Yeah.
It's that hair, man. It's like he's like Samson. That hair just makes him strong.
That's why he was so happy in 1985. He still had hair.
But again, the concept of time, like all this has to happen within this certain amount of time, and
and they should be late because Marty doesn't take off on time.
Yeah, because the DeLorean dies again. Mike, jeez?
He hit a tree, man. What do you want me to say?
And hey, did that ever work? You know, the car won't start. Just slam your head on the steering wheel and it automatically just starts.
No, never worked. Yeah. I got one thing I've got to say about that though. Is just being the picky DeLorean person that I am. You know, when he hits his head on the steering wheel, you hear the horn honk, and the horn's not there on a DeLorean.
Yeah,
that's not how.
Wait, I got one question before we get to. I forgot. Me and you've had this discussion before. What does the actual speedometer read on the DeLorean?
So it actually reads to 85, which
and on theirs it goes to 95.
95, right? They actually had to create that for the movie because the actual factory speedos only go up to 85.
85.
So.
Wow. See, it wouldn't work for the whole 88 miles, even though he had a digital readout on that.
I mean, it'll go that fast, but back in that day, I mean, cars actually speedometers were governed, like they were limited. That was as high as they could go by law. I mean, the car could obviously go faster than that, but that's as high
I don't know. An old Ford LTDs had 120.
Well, so this came about in I think it was the late 70s.
The gas crisis.
That mandate happened, I guess it was thought that if the speedo only reads to 85, people won't go faster than that.
Wrong.
You know, you can bury the needle.
This is where I almost had a problem with the movie. Like I thought I found a major issue in it. Well, I mean, not really, but they were talking about how it'd be like he never left, right? And I was like, well, no, if it's like he never left, he's going to get back and drive right into the ATM and crash into it before the terrorists do. But then as we were watching it today, I was like, oh, wait, I just debunked my own theory here because he's going back to Back to the Future in another part of the town. Right. So exactly where he ends up crashing into the church is where he would have ended up. So.
But not only that, he said he gave himself 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
like,
Doc was sending him back to the exact time, but Marty gave himself 10 minutes.
That was where I was having a problem is that if he would have gone back at the exact same time, he could have potentially crashed
by the Libyans.
Yeah. But no, I debunked my own theory on that because of
it
where
depends on where
he
you
was.
leave.
Yeah.
You got to go from where you're leaving from. You got to think. Remember, you got to think third dimensionally.
Yeah.
Where you're going.
Time and space.
Can we talk about the 10 minutes? Come on, Marty. Give yourself more time than that.
Yeah.
It's like
he actually says,
I got all the time in the world.
Give yourself a half hour.
10 minutes ought to do it.
Dude, give myself a couple hours. Get there. Go drop a deuce. Go buy a BK.
Probably hungry. I mean,
go by the BK because it's right next to Doc's little thing there. And then go help out Doc.
Go an hour early and warn Doc. Before it even happens.
Warn yourself.
Doc, I'm going to show up here in about an hour.
Yeah.
So are the Libyans.
Doc doesn't.
Shit's about to get real.
I'm going to go hide in the truck. I'm going to go sit in the truck with Einstein and,
But Doc doesn't need warning because he already knows.
Yeah. Right. Even though he tore the letter up.
That could be he didn't need to be warned because he already knew. Like that could debunk this whole thing.
No, it couldn't.
So this is what I wrote down, and this is
Shut
how
up, Eric.
we got into this loop. I would like to believe that Doc has known the whole time that this is what was going to happen because of the letter that he found.
Yeah.
Because there really isn't another explanation for them being friends.
Yeah.
Like...
Yeah. That's where I base my whole
I feel
theory
like
on
Doc had to seek him out and something to generate their friendship so that he could go back to save his life. And he could go back to save his life. And
I got one way Marty and them could have met.
Okay.
Because he's this local scientist inventor. He fixes things. What if Marty's guitar amp went out and he needed somebody to fix it? When he was a kid, and he went to go find Doc. Says, Doc, my tubes blew in my amp. Could you help me out?
And then
they
Doc
became-
realizes, hey, this is how Marty comes into my life.
Because I already know.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
There's so
really
many
doesn't
different
work if
possibilities.
I just like
if
I
you-
like to
It's
think.
fun to think about.
It
but
is.
You know, they
it
could
really
have
doesn't work.
They could have met at Burger King because
Yeah.
Doc lived right
Yeah.
there.
He lives right behind. He was like, dude, look at the old man sitting in the corner. And Marty seemed like a cool kid, and he was a little bit of a outcast or whatever. And he just went and struck up a conversation with Doc one day. Something you never know.
But you also have to think that the moment Marty goes back, and this is in this movie's timeline, really, because we know we get sequels after this. But at this point is where potentially Doc Brown starts to hemorrhage his money and become the crazy guy in the town. But it's because he's been set on a path to where, like, essentially he has 30 years to figure out time travel.
Mm-hmm.
So he has to do whatever is within his means to make a time machine at this point, or all of this is debunked. It causes a real big juxtaposition when you think about it like that.
Well, every time travel movie does.
Yeah.
It's very true.
Yeah.
So,
but he's probably also, I'm sure he took good notes on that thing when he had the DeLorean in 1955.
Essentially, he probably should have been like taking the whole DeLorean apart to know what he needed to do to build a flux capacitor.
Right.
He had it all right there in front of him.
Yeah. And plus, he had to make, obviously if you look at it through, that way, he's got to wait for certain technologies to be invented.
Yeah.
So that's why it's going to take me this long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is I'm trying to, even right there when they send Marty back, how did Doc survive that? That lightning came down that metal cable. He's still holding it. It throws him back.
People survive.
He should have
lightning
died.
strikes. People survive lightning
Yeah.
strikes.
I know, but something
multiple
he should have been
times.
severely burned or something. And I was
No.
like, no, I don't like that. I don't like that either. I had it
It'd
in
be
my
funny
notes.
if
I don't
we
like
went
it.
back to 85 and he has like the lightning burn scars all over.
Yeah,
him.
yeah, like he had burns on his hands. Maybe that's why he likes to wear gloves, because he burned his hands from hooking the cables together. That would help Josh's little thing a little even more.
Well, there's not much to say. We've kind of gone over it. Like, he gets back. Doc is wearing the vest. He's had the letter. He's read it. He figured, what the hell?
What the hell?
So Marty goes back and everything seems to be fine. Now, I do like that when he gets back to the mall, it's now the Lone Pine Mall.
Yeah. Lone Pine Mall.
Just those, and again, another little thing that they set up and knock down for you. But when he wakes up, his room is the same. He thinks it's a nightmare. He goes out and things are different. Like, they know about his life in general, but he's changed everything about their family life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he has to relearn his entire life history because it's going to be completely different.
Yeah, and like his mom is she loves Jennifer because of the way things have changed, and it's like Marty.
Jennifer
Marty is
no one knows him. No one knows him.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
Like Jennifer and his relationship is going to be like these are different. It's it's just like it's just like in Rick and Morty when they actually leave their own dimension and go to a different one because
they fucked up their timeline so much that they have to go to a completely different timeline to resume their lives. Yeah.
So
this also goes to show how smart Rick and Morty is they play with this kind of thing in a cartoon.
Because like if their life was totally different, it's like, would he have ever even met Jennifer? Would they even stay there? There's so many holes in that.
This is where you have to really kind of go like,
it's a movie.
You gotta just suspend the disbelief.
And like what the stakes are and what little things you do and how big those changes can be.
Every cause and effect. Every little thing you do has some kind of ripple effect.
But when you're a kid watching this and Doc comes back at the end, is so mind blowing. He's dressed up in all of this future gear.
I love the tie, the clear tie. It's
yes.
amazing.
But I like the fact that he's corrected the plutonium thing. He's got the technology to deal with that in the future. The kids are the problem.
It's sustainable.
Yeah.
It runs on garbage.
Exactly.
I love that he dumps the can.
He dumps the beer out,
and then he throws the can in.
And then he throws. What's the point? Let's pour it out and then throw the whole can in.
But I think where they really messed up here was when he says, bring Jennifer along. It concerns her too, because it really causes some problems for me in the sequels where they go from here. They
have to basically handle that, write that out.
Yeah. And the fact that they couldn't get Claudia Wells back for the part and Elizabeth Shue takes over.
Yeah, but say the future was so messed up, she became Elizabeth Shue.
Yeah. It's like the Karate Kid timeline interspersed with the Back to the Future timeline. We kind of touched on this with the end of Halloween when we talked about Halloween and how they ended that on a cliffhanger of sorts where Michael is still around. And now it's like, oh, you liked this. Just wait. There's more coming.
Wait, in the original film, did they have a to be continued?
They did not.
No?
They did not.
So they only had that
part 2.
That only popped up on the home video release.
Ah, okay.
Because they had started making the new ones at that point.
Ooh, come on, Josh, where you at, boy?
Yeah.
Josh
So the
busted.
theatrical release did not have that to be continued.
I did not know. See, I didn't see it in the theater.
And if you watch them now, like with the Blu-ray and the DVD, or I think it's on the DVD too, but the Blu-ray version, it doesn't have it.
Doesn't have it.
It just ends.
That's what I have.
I
no to
must
be
have not been
continued.
paying attention at the end of these.
It didn't say it.
It didn't? Well, you got to also have to think, again, I didn't see it in the theater. I'm only seeing a home video
Sure.
release. So
No,
when I saw this
that tracks.
movie, it was
Yeah.
a to be continued. And I was like, what? So,
Yeah, because I think
So
when it came out,
Yeah.
I know
Yeah,
when
you
it
get
came out on HBO, it had that because that was how we had the movie.
yeah.
And like, I can get into this whole story, but like, we didn't have a VCR when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
so
well,
occasionally
trust me,
we'd
we
rent
talked about
one
this.
or we'd borrow one
Uh-huh.
from somebody. And like, I had a taped version of Back to the Future. And when we get that VCR for the weekend, dude, that was, it was Back to the Future over and over and over again on that, that taped one that we had.
Yeah.
And it had it. So at least when it came out on TV, they had it.
And
Yeah, but
the heartbreaking part for me was I never got to see Back to the Future 2 until much later in life. And I think that's why this one really sticks with me. And I don't have an affinity for the sequels. I like them. I will watch them. They're good movies. And a lot of people have this big love for part 2 because it does take it into the future. And like Eric said earlier, it predicted some things that were pretty true to life.
Yeah.
But I do have, it really delves into the timeline stuff, and I have issues with it. I honestly,
2 is weird because it has some really great stuff in it and some really bad stuff in it.
Yeah.
It's very like high and low. I think the third one is more consistent. But
I
the
actually-
second one is
I was about to say
bizarre.
I like part 3 better than part 2.
I like part 3 better than part 2 as well.
But you don't get. I mean, the hoverboard. There's so many great things for
Yeah.
2 that.
Yeah.
Oh
you
yeah,
just don't
there's
wanna
great
get
stuff
rid of.
in it, but
Yeah.
it's definitely the first
The
one
self-
is really where
But I
it's
agree.
at.
That's it,
2's
yeah.
the
Yeah.
weakest. Yeah.
The self-lacing Nikes that now they have invented.
Right.
They have done that now. So I'm still waiting on the full functional hoverboard. They have these little ones you could do little stuff, but I want a real hoverboard.
Yeah. Me too.
So that's Back to the Future, ladies and
Bust my
gentlemen.
ass on a regular skateboard. I don't need a hoverboard.
Oh, I don't dare get on a skateboard nowadays. I tried it in my later 20s. No, I don't recommend it.
I never had the skills to skateboard anyway.
But that's Back to the Future, ladies and gentlemen. Worth a rental, Jenny,
Absolutely.
Mike,
Absolutely.
Jason.
Yes, rent it and then tape it on another tape with a stolen VCR or stolen tape.
Stolen VCR.
You got to do what you got to do, man.
Eric.
Yes, it's close to a perfect movie. It's amazing.
I will say it's definitely worth the rental as well. I mean, at this point, who hasn't seen Back to the Future? Maybe
If you haven't seen Back to the Future, you should check it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Is that your staff pick for the weekend?
Yeah, we just spent the last how many hours talking about this movie. Yeah, please check it out. You might like it.
The good, the bad, the ugly.
All right, good, the bad, and the ugly. Let's talk about the good things, the bad things, and the ugly things. Who wants to start?
Mike, do you got some good, bad, and uglies?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, the good, you got to go with the time machine.
Yeah.
I think,
yes.
Yep. That's, for me, that was, I love the movie. But for me,
I don't know if you'll get a more iconic
I don't think
car.
so. No.
Like, I can't think of anything. I mean, you got Knight Rider, Kit.
I got the
Ecto-1.
Batmobile.
No,
The
Christine.
Batmobile's even-
But this also goes back to the movie Ecto-1.
Ghostbusters. That's an iconic
Oh
car.
yeah, we haven't talked about that yet.
Yeah.
But no, you're right. You know what? Best punch in movie history, best car in movie history.
I'm going with best car. I gotta.
Well,
I gotta,
Mike has to. He owns one. He has to.
Yeah, but it's such
He doesn't have to.
It's such a character in the movie.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
just a prop. I mean, it is a character, in the movie, and it's just so iconic that, I'm going with that. That's my good.
How about your
bad?
Bad?
Surprise.
Yeah, what's your bad?
Well, I don't know. It's bad or ugly. I think obviously the time travel hiccups and and clashings with reality, and that's just gonna happen with any time travel movie. Yeah. But it's a movie magic, movie world. You kind of have to just let that sort of thing go and enjoy. I mean, the ugly. I mean, we've talked about kind of Biff's behavior and things like that just don't. They've never. It's always been bad, but
it's the one thing that doesn't really hold up for me.
It's just hard. It's hard to watch, but I think those would be my three.
Okay.
Good,
Who wants to go next?
I'll go.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
Sorry,
we got a rivalry.
Got to arm wrestle for it.
Jenny, you can just have a seat, and I'll go.
Oh, wow.
So anyway, my good, I'm going to go with Doc's performance. Doc is hilarious. Josh. Anyway, bad, I'm going to do the paradoxes, just some of the stuff that doesn't add up and, whatever. And ugly is the stunt driver at the end. When he pulls into the driveway.
All right, Jenny.
My good is Michael J. Fox. He was meant to be in this role. It's perfect.
Yeah.
Bad bullying, a little racism thrown in there. Yeah. I feel like a record repeating.
I don't
these
think
movies.
it's
not as bad
as what
the
we've
bullying
experienced so
is
far.
bad. The bullying
bad.
and harassment on the part of Biff and other students.
But he
in
is
the
a
50s.
bully and he's a jerk. That's the
yeah.
truth.
Well, yeah. But then also the teacher. I mean, he doesn't have to be. He should be supporting his students.
If anything, he should be supporting his kids. Yeah.
Yeah. Ugly.
With you on that one.
Rape. Just rape.
Yeah.
Jason?
The movie holds up after all these years.
Yep.
Like it's still a story of a kid, a good friend, which is Doc, a father figure, and they have an adventure together. And this formula has been used how many times over the years in Hollywood? Yeah. Yep. And it's been used, but has not been replicated very many times. So my bad. Some of the effects just kind of, they didn't hold up. The whole disappearing hand when he's playing guitar on Earth Angel.
Oh, I kind of like that still.
Yeah. Yeah, but you could tell that it just doesn't hold up. It looks like just somebody just held up a hand and made it disappear.
No, he holds it up.
Yeah, he holds it up. He holds it up. But and the product the placement, too much to me. But ugly, I was going to go with the racist comments and stuff like that, which was they tried to stay as true to 1955 as possible. I mean, I know they had to keep it in the movie, and it makes the movie what it is. But it also, it just shows you how it kind of was in 55, and maybe a lot of people didn't realize that it was still that bad, and even in 55, and it's still bad today. But that's what I think the ugly part is.
Okay. Well, my good is the way they set the pins up and knock them down throughout the movie. Like, they are very good at paying attention to detail, and everything they set up, they bring back and knock down for you. And I love that about this movie. Even 30 years later, I'm watching it now and still trying to find holes in things. And there's good debate for everything that I can kind of point out. The bad is the Johnny B. Good performance for me. Like, not Michael J. Fox's performance, but I just don't think the overdubs and whatnot in it work well, and it grates on me when I watch it. And the ugly is that the sexual assault is treated very casually. Like, this is some pretty heavy petting that they kind of brush off a little bit, and I don't think that holds up as very well either. So
I was worried you were gonna call out Doc in your bad or ugly.
Nah, there's no way I would have called Doc bad or ugly about this. I mean, there are things about his performance that I find, again, overacting or whatnot, but it doesn't taint anything about it for me. Like, I still think the movie is great. I still think Christopher Lloyd is great as Doc. I just think there's a few moments that don't work for me. But we're going a little long here, and I don't want to drag this out any longer than we really need to. We did pose a question in our Ghostbusters episode, though, of what is the better movie, Ghostbusters or Back to the Future? I'm probably going to be the only one here, but I am on the side of Ghostbusters. Where does everybody else stand on this?
I want to say that these movies are equal in my mind for nostalgia, for still holding up.
Mm-hmm.
I think now, as an adult, Ghostbusters is a better comedy. Hands down.
Yeah.
Back to the Future is a better movie overall.
Okay. I get that. Mm-hmm. For me, Ghostbusters still holds a higher standard of a movie for me. But they're both iconic in their own right and deserved. I mean, this is the great thing about these two movies is there is some debate you can have with that. That's probably why I prefer Ghostbusters over this a little bit, is the issues I do have with some of the overacting or the performances, like stuff like that. So how about everybody, like Jason, where do you stand on that?
Ooh, that's a hard one. Like I said, this Back to the Future with the whole skateboarding and music thing, and the music was such a big part of my life through my earlier adult years, and even as a kid learning to play, and the skateboarding when I was a kid. But as an adult, I have to go with like Josh. I like Ghostbusters. As if it's a comedy, yes, I would say Ghostbusters is better because I'm more of a horror person anyway. But is Back to the Future still one of the greatest films ever be to put to celluloid out there? Yes, definitely. Way up there amongst the likes of anything ever been made. But I would go with Ghostbusters.
Eric, how about you?
Back to the Future does a between the legs, behind the back dunk on Ghostbusters. And I love Ghostbusters, but this movie is one of the greatest films ever made, period. It's better.
All right. And I think we know where Mike stands.
Well, yeah. You know, I love Ghostbusters. I mean, it's one of my favorite movies of all time. And so I tried to prepare for this question because I knew it was coming. I am a listener of this podcast. But my first instinct, was that I can't compare them on a rank. I mean, they're both good movies for what they are trying to accomplish. Yes, if you're talking about a comedy, what's the best comedy? I'd give it to Ghostbusters, but I don't look at Back to the Future as a comedy.
Yeah.
It's more sci-fi fantasy,
and adventure.
So it's a tough one. I mean, they both do what they do very well.
Right.
Yep.
But if you're going to, if I had to pick, what's my deserted island movie?
Yes, you have to pick. You got to do it.
I'm going with Back to the Future. Just if for no other reason than, just the what it's represented in my life for so long. It really has been a
I believe that's 3-2.
That's 3-2.
I'm no scientist.
It's
No,
a
I
tie.
think yeah, it's actually
I'm going to
2,
say it's
2,
a
and
tie because
Jenny, get off the fence and join a side.
It's so good over
I
here.
think it should be a tie because
Jenny's
they're
an undecided
both
voter over there.
excellent movies. Sorry.
You're not wrong.
I'm
yeah. Jenny is not wrong at all.
We on our graphic we described it as the battle nobody asked for.
True.
I mean, nobody cares about this at all,
Yeah.
which is why you don't need to.
It's fun
toil
talk on a
over the
podcast. So I think that's going to do it for us tonight, guys. We've been talking for quite a long time. I figured this would be a long episode. We did release a surprise mini-sode on Halloween for everybody.
If you missed it.
If you missed it, go back and take a listen to it after you get done with this. We played horror trivia for Halloween, and it was quite fun. We plan on doing some more mini-sodes for you guys going forward. It could be anything from us playing trivia, talking about our return bin, any movies we watched throughout the week that we want to discuss with each other, trailers, movie news, any kind of emails or comments we get from anybody on social media that wants to interact with us. So that's going to do it for episode 9 of the VHS Files. Had a great time tonight. It was a great discussion. And next week we will be back with Conan the Barbarian.
Oh, yes. Look at Eric's face. This is the grin in the ear to ear. He's been waiting for this.
I'm ready.
Time to get into some fantasy elements here.
And thank you very much to our special guest, Mike Farrington,
Mr. Mike
for being
Farrington,
here.
yes.
Mike, you'll have to
Wouldn't
come
have
back.
done it without you.
Yes, thank
That's
you.
not Mike. That's Mikey. He's always Mike. And Mike.
Well, thank you for the invitation to come on. It was a blast, and I'm honored to have been a part of it.
We're honored to have had you here. And if our living situation is going to change a little bit moving forward, but if we can get you on a Zoom call for the Back to the Future 2, Back to the Future 3 episodes, we'll absolutely have you back. And I think that'll do it for us tonight, guys. So tune in next week, talking Conan. And until then, be kind, rewind. Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Get the fuck out.
It's over. You've been listening to the VHS Files Podcast.
Watch a few movies, take a few notes.
If you like what you heard, please subscribe and drop us a rating and a review wherever you get your podcast.
It was fun.
Email us your comments, questions, and movie suggestions at the.vhsfiles@gmail.com.
I've seen one too many movies.
Follow us on Facebook at VHS Files Podcast.
Don't you blame the movies!
On Instagram at vhs.files.
Movies don't create psychos!
On Twitter at VHS_files.
Movies make psychos more creative!
And head over to our YouTube channel at the VHS Files Podcast for more content. Thanks for listening. We will not stop podcasting until we figure out time travel.
And the chair just broke.
Mikey broke the chair. Dude, we got 2 gingers on the show tonight.
I'm not as savvy with the computer as you guys are.
Oh, bullshit. You just put this whole thing together. You can't open another window? Oh, my God, my ear hole.